Chapter 1667. Along the way, Yiqing Luo maintained her robot state, obediently following behind Pharaoh Crane. Pharaoh He's entire heart was placed on the butterfly saint technique, so he had no time to bother about Yiqing Luo. As for butterfly saint technique, she was getting impatient from Pharaoh He's pestering, but on the surface she still had to go along with a few sentences. She was slightly distracted and didn't pay much attention to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. Someone keeps staring at me. He would eventually give himself away. Before reaching the dark sanctuary, she could not let anyone know that she was not contaminated. Darkness Sanctum, the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Girl, are you sure you really want to enter the darkness sacred region? Old Man Song's voice was filled with worry. He knew that he had no way to persuade Yiqing Luo to give up on this idea. But based on Yiqing Luo's current ability, something really happened. There was no way to escape. He still hadn't been able to cultivate a spiritual body, so he could only wait anxiously in the Azure Dew bracelet. If only he knew that this girl was such a troublemaker. Back then, he should have exhausted everything to cultivate the spirit body first. Even if I don't go in, I'm afraid I won't be able to leave. Yiqing Luo replied in her heart. There was no turning back now that she had snuck into the underground forces. She had no other choice but to follow her original plan and keep moving forward. Moreover, her original intention was to take the opportunity to infiltrate the Dark Coalition and find out the location of the Dark Coalition's base. Now, there was a chance to enter the Darkness Sanctuary. It was even more impossible for her to give up this opportunity. The King of Darkness was currently sealed, and he did not have any strength left. If she were to do something to the Sanctuary of Darkness and ruin the King of Darkness' plan to remove the seal, it would be a heavy blow to the dark forces. This darkness sacred region. Naturally, she had to go. That place is too dangerous. I'm worried that based on your current strength, you won't be able to handle it. Old Man Song naturally knew what Yiqing Luo was planning. However, there was no such plan. There was only a 1% chance. If it was really that easy to foil the King of Darkness's plan to remove the seal, then the King of Darkness wouldn't be able to do so. The dark forces would not have had the chance to turn things around. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips. Her slender fingers gently rubbed the profound phoenix ring on her fingertip. I'm not afraid. I believe Xian will understand what I mean. Yiqing Luo's heart felt a trace of warmth when she thought of that purple-robed man with peerless elegance. She believed in the feelings between Dmo Xian and her. Even if she said nothing, Dmo Xian would definitely understand. Ever since she was young, she had been brainwashed into thinking that she could only rely on herself in this world. She couldn't rely on anyone. Even those old men from the Yi clan. Even the old man who taught her all kinds of ultimate skills. She could not be relied on. But, to Dmo Xian, she wanted to rely on him. Stop, stop, stop. Old Man Song helplessly shook his head. This old man is worried about you. I don't want to get dog food from you. The word, dog food. Old Man Song had learned it from Yiqing Luo. You are still a person controlled by Pi. Don't show that kind of smile. If the people from the dark forces see it, all your plans will be ruined. Old Man Song reminded him. Indeed, now was not the time to show off their affection. Yiqing Luo kept the emotions in her heart as she refocused her energy on the two people in front. Pharaoh He and Butterfly Saint Technique were still talking about something. Chapter 1668. After several twists and turns, they walked for more than an hour. Pharaoh He finally stopped at an extremely secluded back mountain in the palace. Along the way, Yiqing Luo had already formed a map of the surrounding terrain in her mind. And this secluded back mountain could be said. It was really secluded. If it wasn't for the fact that she was following behind Pharaoh He, she probably wouldn't even be able to find this place. Even if she found it, she would absolutely not link the dark sacred region with this secluded back mountain. This place was actually the dark sacred region where the King of Darkness was sealed? In order to conceal the dark sacred region, the dark forces are really going all out. Old Man Song was extremely astonished. I didn't sense any profound yin-chi fluctuations in the surroundings. The dark forces were able to develop their forces till now even after the King of Darkness was sealed. And to think of ways to sneak into the Nirvana realm, this is enough to prove that the dark forces are not idiots. After hearing Old Man Song's words, Yiqing Luo also understood why the dark forces wanted to use this desolate back mountain to conceal the dark sacred region. If the dark forces met with an ambush, even if the entire clan was annihilated, at least the King of Darkness was still alive. As long as the King of Darkness was still alive, once the seal was released, Their dark forces would be able to step into development once again, stepping into the peak. You also know that they are not idiots, so you better be careful. If the dark forces find out, I won't be able to save you. Hearing Yiqing Luo's tone, it was still that relaxed. Old man Song sighed helplessly. Only this last could maintain her composure the closer they were to danger. As a saint technique, I don't have the right to learn the secret arts, so I can only send you here. Butterfly Saint Technique stopped in her tracks as she smiled at Pharaoh He. Pharaoh He grabbed Butterfly Saint Technique's little hand as he smiled. As long as I die once, I can teach you anything. The rules set by his lordship can't be broken. The Butterfly Saint Law patted the back of his hand coquettishly, winked and said angrily, "All right, hurry up and lead that little slut in. I can't wait to see that little slut become food for the Lord." Pharaoh He took advantage of Butterfly Saint Technique's words again. At the same time, he hinted at the Butterfly Saint Technique ambiguously. He walked towards Yiqing Luo and clasped her shoulders. Yiqing Luo was in pain, but she forcefully endured the intense pain. Pharaoh He dragged him toward the deserted back mountain. As she stepped into the rear mountain, Yiqing Luo clearly felt a cooling sensation brushing past her cheeks and body. Yiqing Luo acutely discovered that when Pharaoh He walked up the rear mountain, his fingers had already formed a hand seal. This is a barrier? Yes, this kind of barrier is different from the traditional barriers that you normally encounter. Old Man Song promptly explained, this is a kind of dark barrier, a reverse barrier. Reverse bounded domain? What the hell is this? Barriers can be divided into several types? In other words, there is a reverse barrier set up in this back mountain. If you don't have the reverse spirit formation secret technique, you won't be blocked like a traditional spirit formation when you step into the back mountain. Instead, the back mountain that you enter is truly just a back mountain. If you use the reverse spirit formation secret technique to enter this back mountain, you will arrive at the real hidden place. Yiqing Luo nodded her head in understanding. Looked like in order to enter the dark sacred region, she needed to know about this reverse spirit formation secret technique. Then, how should Xian use the profound phoenix ring to find her? Chapter 1669. She was forcefully dragged along by Pharaoh He for about 1 incense's time. Yiqing Luo felt that her shoulders were about to be torn apart. This old man was so gentle in front of the Butterfly Saint Technique, like a little wolf dog trying to please her. Facing her, he was so crude, not knowing how to be protective of the fairer sex. At least. Her looks were several streets ahead of the Butterfly Saint Technique. At least. She was younger than the Butterfly Saint Technique. Why did this old man have to target her? Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with grief and indignation. Under Pharaoh He's tugging, she entered the reverse enchantment, the real hidden place. The surroundings were strangely quiet. It was so quiet that only their footsteps could be heard. The surroundings were filled with a black fog, emitting a poisonous miasma. Between the breaths, there was an extremely thick smell of blood. The bright moon in the sky hung on the horizon, faintly discernible, but it wasn't clear. Instead, it added a strange atmosphere. Yiqing Luo's gaze finally landed on the front. That was the end of a path filled with black brambles. At the end, there was a majestic palace made of black jade stones. The palace was surrounded by 12 pillars, representing the 12 constellations. And every pillar was engraved with sealing runes. The runes on the pillars were emitting a smooth jade glow, suppressing the black fog in all directions. Other than the strange black brambles, there was not a single blade of grass around. The heavens and earth were silent, as though only Yiqing Luo and Pharaoh He were the only living people in this world. Yiqing Luo looked at the surrounding 12 pillars, then she looked at the palace in front of her. This was dark sacred region. The place where the King of Darkness was sealed. When she saw this majestic palace, Pharaoh He's hand, which was pinching Yiqing Luo's shoulder, slowly slid down. The expression on his face became extremely respectful. His entire being became more solemn. He lifted his feet and walked towards the palace. Yiqing Luo followed closely behind. The two of them, one in front and one behind, followed the brambles on the ground as they walked into the palace. A thick smell of blood assaulted their senses. It was so thick that it made them nauseous. The surrounding black fog and miasma also gradually dispersed. Pharaoh Crane did not feel the atmosphere in the palace at all. His expression was solemn and his eyes were filled with respect. With an incomparably devout heart, he walked at the front step by step. The interior of the palace was extremely spacious. The first thing he saw was a huge circular altar. Below the altar was a huge pit that occupied 2/3 of the palace. The pit was covered with a thin layer of silk cloth. No, that was not silk. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she stared intently at that silk cloth. If she wasn't wrong, it should be the thin frost formed by the 10,000-year-old ice on the 10,000-year-old ice mountain in the north of the Nirvana realm. This thin frost had lasted for tens of thousands of years. It absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and the essence of the sun and moon. It never melts all year round. Yiqing Luo had once heard that this 10,000-year-old cold ice had the ability to preserve corpses and prevent them from rotting forever. Who would have thought that the 10,000-year frost would be in the darkness sanctuary? What was covered by the thin frost? Yiqing Luo wanted to take a closer look. Suddenly he heard a loud thud beside his ear. Pharaoh he knelt down on the ground, facing that circular altar, as he knocked his head hard onto the ground. Lass, don't be in a daze, follow suit and kneel down. Old man Song immediately reminded her in her mind. Kneel down? Make her kneel down in front of the King of Darkness? Looking at Pharaoh he's devout, kneeling back view, Yiqing Luo's eyes gradually turned cold. This place. There was only Pharaoh he alone. The King of Darkness was in the seal. If she were to kill Pharaoh he now, then she would ruin the King of Darkness's plan to remove the seal. Chapter 1670. Just as Yiqing Luo was thinking of a series of plans, suddenly he heard an unfamiliar voice that sounded like rustling leaves. Did you fail? Yiqing Luo felt a chill down her spine. This voice was just 3 simple words, but it made Yiqing Luo feel a terrifying aura. Yiqing Luo instinctively reacted. This voice, it was the voice of the King of Darkness. Other than the King of Darkness, there was no other presence in the dark sacred region. Wasn't the King of Darkness sealed? Why could he still speak? Had she guessed wrongly? How could that be the voice of the King of Darkness? Numerous thoughts filled her mind. The next moment, Pharaoh he had already used his actions to express everything. Pharaoh he respectfully knelt on the ground as his voice trembled. My lord, I'm sorry. It's my incompetence to let a young lass destroy the spirit assimilation array. Indeed, that voice came from the King of Darkness. The person who was sealed could still speak? The King of Darkness is a being that roams above the lower realm and below the upper realm, not belonging to the 4 realms. Even if the King of Darkness is sealed, the consciousness of the King of Darkness still exists. Old man Song's tone was extremely solemn and solemn. Lass, the power of the King of Darkness is far beyond your imagination. Even if the consciousness of the King of Darkness can't stay awake for too long, but, to deal with you, it's more than enough. Yiqing Luo was stunned. In the darkness, there seemed to be a pair of icy cold eyes staring at her without blinking. A chill spread from her feet all the way to the top of her head. Her entire body seemed to have been frozen into an ice cube. She congealed her senses and tried her best to maintain her state of being under control. My lord, the reason for my failure is because of Yiqing Luo that... Pharaoh he anxiously wanted to say that there might be someone from the lower realm behind Yiqing Luo helping her. But before he could finish his words, he was sent flying by a powerful force, crashing heavily onto the stone wall of the palace. With a dong, he rolled down from the stone wall. Pharaoh he clutched his chest as he spat out a mouthful of blood. A failure is a failure. Don't try to find excuses for your failure. A cold and sinister voice rang out, carrying with it an obvious killing intent. Spare me, Lord. Spare me. I know I was wrong, I won't fail again, Pharaoh Crane's plea did not arouse the slightest bit of sympathy from the King of Darkness. That powerful force came wave after wave. It continuously swept up Pharaoh Crane's body. He was flung around in all directions. Under the punishment of the King of Darkness, several of Pharaoh's bones were broken, and blood was flowing out of his mouth. After an unknown period of time, perhaps the King of Darkness was tired. Perhaps it was because he saw Pharaoh Crane lying on the ground on his last breath. He only needed one more strike to take Pharaoh Crane's life. The majestic aura that lingered in the surroundings suddenly dissipated. Yiqing Luo remained standing at the same spot, her body tensed up, totally unaffected by this imposing manner. The target was the King of Darkness. Pharaoh Crane was riddled with scars from the fall. He didn't dare to order Yiqing Luo to bear it for him. Yiqing Luo didn't hear Old Man Song's reminder. Pharaoh he had used a secret art to control her. Chapter 1671. Pharaoh Crane's entire body was filled with an excruciating pain. His body felt as though it was being cut by numerous sawteeth. His face was pale as the pain continued to stimulate his consciousness. But he didn't dare to dodge or resist at all. Useless trash, what's the use of this king keeping a bunch of trash like you? King of Darkness's voice was hoarse as it was filled with a terrifying eeriness. Pharaoh Crane laid on the ground as he panted heavily. His face was filled with blood stains. His four limbs had lost the ability to move under King of Darkness's violent attacks. But when he heard King of Darkness's voice, Pharaoh Crane forced himself to hold on as he slowly shifted his body into a kneeling position. His voice was trembling as he opened his mouth in terror. Overlord. Overlord, please forgive me although I failed in the mission of the spirit assimilation array, but I brought Yiqing Luo back. Saying that, he raised his head with difficulty as he looked at Yiqing Luo, who was standing stiffly by the side, not moving at all. For a long time, King of Darkness didn't say a word. It was just that the chill in the surroundings continued to spread. Even if it was Yiqing Luo, her skin had already started to break out with goosebumps under this chill. Finally, King of Darkness's voice rang. Yiqing Luo, that vessel? Yes, it's the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade's vessel. Pharaoh Crane immediately responded, as long as there's profound chi nurtured by the vessel, I can also speed up my lord's unsealing speed. Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Vessel. When Yiqing Luo heard Pharaoh Crane's words, her heart thumped extremely quickly. Could it be her heaven-defying Profound Heart Jade? What kind of Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade was it? And she was this Profound Heart Jade's vessel? Using her own body to nurture this Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade's vessel? Why didn't she understand the meaning behind Pharaoh Crane's words? You bunch of trash do have some use. King of Darkness sneered softly. Yiqing Luo suddenly felt that there was a pair of icy cold, terrifying gaze falling onto her. She was unable to sense the exact direction of that gaze. Or perhaps she felt that there were people staring at her from all directions. That gaze was glued onto her. It made her have a nauseous impulse. Yiqing Luo knew. The King of Darkness was sizing her up. She couldn't move, her heart couldn't beat fast, and her breathing couldn't be rushed. The King of Darkness was not Pharaoh Crane. Any small problem could expose the fact that she was not being controlled by Tao Wu. What are you waiting for? Bring the container over to this king. Could it be that you want this king to do it himself? As soon as the King of Darkness's cold voice rang out, a loud sound rang out. Pharaoh He, who was kneeling on the ground, was once again sent flying backward. Pharaoh Crane rolled a few times on the ground. Enduring the intense pain, he stumbled and crawled towards Yiqing Luo's direction. What are you waiting for? Go over to his lordship's side. Pharaoh He leaned close to Yiqing Luo as he commanded in a low voice. Yiqing Luo's body stiffened as she lifted her feet and walked towards that circular altar. Pharaoh Crane took the opportunity to chant a secret technique and performed a simple healing and pain relief on himself before catching up. The closer they got to the altar, the thicker the stench of blood permeated Yiqing Luo's nose. The smell of blood. The smell was even more pungent and unpleasant than when she was in the flame lair and the ground was littered with corpses. Chapter 1672. My lord, the last time I obtained the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, I could only use it to sense the location of the vast water divine weapon. This time, with this vessel, I will definitely be able to maximize the effects of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Pharaoh Crane cautiously approached the altar, not forgetting to flatter it in a low voice. Have you found the whereabouts of the other azure water divine weapons? The King of Darkness scoffed. Pharaoh He's face turned pale and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. How could he have forgotten? Even though he had obtained the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, the Azure Dew Ring was still taken away by Yiqing Luo in the end. If it wasn't for his lord having foresight and letting him use a secret technique first to tamper with the Profound Heart Jade, he wouldn't have been able to do so. I'm afraid. They totally had no idea how to deal with Yiqing Luo. The dark forces were losing again and again. All of them had fallen onto Yiqing Luo. He was still mentioning the vast water divine artifact. Wasn't that courting death? Pharaoh He's body trembled and his voice trembled as he said, And my lord, don't worry. After this subordinate transmits the mystical energy within the vessel to my lord, I will immediately send the people of the Crane faction to search for the whereabouts of the other azure water divine weapons. If you're going to search for the whereabouts of the divine artifact, how is this vessel going to nurture the profound energy needed to break my seal? The King of Darkness sneered. Pharaoh Crane was drenched in cold sweat. Bean-sized beads of sweat dripped from his forehead. His body trembled in fear. Their conversation made Yiqing Luo even more puzzled. Was it her Profound Heart Jade, or the radar that was searching for the azure water divine weapon. She suddenly remembered that last time in the tomb of the Ling King, the people from the dark forces had used her profound heart jade to open the barrier of the azure water ring. Her profound heart jade. Did it have any special connection to the azure water divine artifact? She remembered that the azure water ring seemed to be calling out to her at that time. It was as if the azure water ring was originally a divine tool that belonged to her. Why was the King of Darkness collecting the azure water divine weapon? Moreover, it seemed like he was determined to get it. To the dark forces, the azure water divine artifact. What kind of crucial role did it play? Cough cough little girl, what you should be worried about right now isn't the matter of the vast water divine artifact. Old man Song reminded her helplessly. If your profound energy is completely sucked out by Pharaoh He and transferred to the seal of the sacred region, you will lose all your profound energy and become a cripple. Yiqing Luo laughed secretly in her heart. Did you think that I would give Pharaoh He this chance? Are you going to use force? Old man Song hurriedly tried to dissuade him. This is the territory of the dark forces. If the King of Darkness knows that your profound heart jade isn't contaminated by the profound Yin Qi, you won't be able to leave the darkness sanctuary with your strength. The King of Darkness won't be able to remain conscious for long. Furthermore, he used up all his energy to punish Pharaoh He. How much energy does he have left? Yiqing Luo asked calmly. She noticed. The King of Darkness was determined to kill Pharaoh He. However, when Pharaoh He said that she, as a vessel, should be transferred to the King of Darkness, she felt a chill run down her spine. The King of Darkness' killing intent had clearly weakened. The King of Darkness needed power. Even if it was sealed, he still needed power. Before entering the Darkness Sanctuary, the Butterfly Saint technique had mentioned that the King of Darkness would awaken for a short period of time. Short period of time. These two words meant that the time that the King of Darkness would be awake for wasn't considered long. Or rather, the reason why he could obtain a short period of consciousness. Chapter 1673. Which meant? Even if Yiqing Luo revealed that she wasn't contaminated, the King of Darkness couldn't do anything to her. Old man Song was stunned as he burst out laughing. What a good lass, Luo, your thoughts are so meticulous. I finally understand the reason why you insist on following Pharaoh He into the dark sacred region. This lass. She would never do anything that she wasn't sure of, even if she was in danger. She had already planned all her escape routes. She was indeed the owner of the Azure Dew bracelet. Just as Yiqing Luo and Old Man Song were conversing, she and Pharaoh He were already standing on the altar. Pharaoh He looked at the stiff young lady who was standing in the middle of the altar. A sinister glint flashed past his eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that this young lady was the divine phoenix profound jade's vessel, he would definitely strangle her to death. Suppressing the hatred and anger towards Yiqing Luo, Pharaoh He walked over to her. My lord, I will start the incantation now. Pharaoh He grabbed Yiqing Luo's wrist and pressed her against the altar wall, which was filled with complicated patterns. Suddenly, a bone-piercing chill came from his back. A disgusting, indescribable feeling of disgust and fear surged up her heart. That was the feeling of the King of Darkness. On the wall of the altar. It was the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. This was the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Pharaoh He raised her hand, and after pressing it against the wall, he pulled her other hand and pressed it against the wall. But when he pressed down on the other hand, suddenly she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. Her body was like a broken kite as it flew out horizontally. He was flung out of the altar and landed on the ground. Yiqing Luo used all her strength for this kick. That kick caused Pharaoh He's internal organs to feel like they had been shattered. His throat felt sweet as he spat out a mouthful of blood. You. Pharaoh He trembled as he raised his head to look at the altar. But he discovered that Yiqing Luo was standing by the side of the altar, looking at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Pharaoh He's eyes were filled with shock. You. Don't you can't even speak properly, just save some energy. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she leapt down the altar. Then he stomped on Pharaoh Crane's chest. Another mouthful of blood gushed out from Pharaoh Crane's mouth. It's fine if you can't speak. Whatever you want to ask, I'll answer it for you. Yiqing Luo gave a light smile as she lowered her body slightly, looking down at Pharaoh He's face, which was filled with terror. You want to know why I attacked you, right? Pharaoh Crane's pupils constricted. The moment he got agitated, his internal organs tightened as well. It was so painful that he couldn't help but curl up and twitch. Pharaoh He, don't doubt your own secret arts. Yiqing Luo's smile deepened. I don't have the ability to break free from your secret art's control. Pharaoh Crane shook his head. If it wasn't for the fact that she had broken free from his secret technique, she would have died. How could Yiqing Luo possibly regain her consciousness? Because, from the beginning to the end, I have never been controlled by you. Yiqing Luo's fingers gently touched her chest. In my profound jade heart, I used the dark secret arts to hide the profound yin qi just to wait for this moment. But unfortunately, your plan has failed once again. Pharaoh He's pupils suddenly widened. His eyes were filled with astonishment, as though he was surprised that Yiqing Luo knew all these. Yiqing Luo smiled like a flower. Pharaoh He's face was as white as paper. The atmosphere froze in an instant. Chapter 1674. Hearing King of Darkness's words, Yiqing Luo turned her head and looked towards the altar which was filled with patterns on the wall. Her pink lips rose slightly as she said in an evil and frivolous tone, "Then you have to come out from inside first." The surrounding mysterious yin qi, as well as the impending chill of a storm, suddenly deepened. King of Darkness was enraged. He was enraged. Yiqing Luo smiled even more joyfully. Between her brows was a bright and enchanting smile. King of Darkness, don't try to threaten me. Her voice was calm, without any fluctuation of emotions. You who have been sealed. Your remaining energy is probably not enough to keep me in the dark sacred region. So confident? King of Darkness laughed coldly. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were filled with a sliver of arrogance. Then why don't King of Darkness give it a try, to use your last bit of energy to test me? Or to stop me, to destroy your plan to remove the seal? Silence made this treacherous atmosphere become more and more strange. King of Darkness didn't speak. Yiqing Luo's heart slowly calmed down. Her guess was right. King of Darkness didn't have much energy left. She had this divine phoenix profound heart jade, so King of Darkness didn't dare to make a move easily. After all, King of Darkness didn't know much about her ability. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about King of Darkness's silence. She turned her head back as her lips curled into a smile. Her eyes were filled with a sharp glint as she fixed her gaze on Pharaoh He, who was lying on the ground, unable to move. Pharaoh He, do you want to live on? She smiled lightly as her tone was gentle. Pharaoh He's pupils contracted as he stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. She smiled slightly. Your life to me is not that important. If I want to strangle you, it's much easier than strangling an ant. Pharaoh He was so angry that his heart was in pain. His entire body trembled. His internal organs were trembling as though they were being torn apart. Answer my question obediently and I guarantee that you will be safe. Out of the dark sacred region. Yiqing Luo suddenly bent down as her slender fingers suddenly clasped onto Pharaoh He's neck. Her fingers tightened, the bones of her fingers were slender and distinct. Pharaoh He's pale face instantly turned purplish green. Pharaoh He's pupils dilated as he struggled to break free from Yiqing Luo's fingers. But his body was riddled with wounds and he didn't have the strength to struggle. You don't want to die, right? Yiqing Luo could see the desire to live from Pharaoh He's eyes. He wanted to ask the King of Darkness for help. But he couldn't say a word. Yiqing Luo smiled as she loosened the strength on his neck, as her other hand landed on his face as she gently patted him. It wasn't easy to get to where you are today. How would you bear to die so easily? Don't worry. As long as you answer my questions obediently, not only will I guarantee your safety, but I will also guarantee that you will obtain the sacred butterfly technique. He mentioned the butterfly saint technique. Pharaoh He's eyes flashed with a glint. Yiqing Luo took a panoramic view of his emotional changes. Then she continued, think about it. If I send you out and I stay in the darkness sanctuary to fight the King of Darkness, who will benefit in the end? The glint in Pharaoh He's eyes grew brighter. If Yiqing Luo and the King of Darkness were to fight, the current King of Darkness might not be Yiqing Luo's match. If the King of Darkness was completely sealed, wouldn't the beneficiaries be the 4 great saint techniques and the 4 great pharaohs? By then he would pretend to be under the King of Darkness's orders. He would control all the dark forces in his hands. Chapter 1675. This bottle of medicine can make the butterfly saint skill willingly to follow you. Yiqing Luo touched the profound phoenix ring and took out a white jade bottle. Under this treacherous light, that white jade bottle shone with a dazzling luster. Pharaoh He's gaze fell directly on the white jade bottle. He heard that Yiqing Luo was an alchemist. It was extremely normal for Yiqing Luo to be able to refine a pill that could make a lady willingly follow her. What do you want to know? Pharaoh he finally surrendered. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly. What is the divine phoenix profound heart jade? What secret is hidden in this profound heart jade of mine? This. Pharaoh he's face turned pale, as though he didn't expect Yiqing Luo to ask this question. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Why? Not willing to say? No. Pharaoh he hurriedly opened his mouth, his eyes filled with panic. But, this matter is extremely complicated, maybe you don't understand. Yiqing Luo continued to raise her brows as she softly hummed a note. But it made Pharaoh his scalp go numb. Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. It's. Pharaoh he looked towards the altar in horror, only to discover that the King of Darkness didn't move at all. Then he looked at Yiqing Luo's beautiful face with a light smile. He gritted his teeth and replied, Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade is the most noble profound heart jade in this world. There is only one of it in this world. Most noble? How much is the difference between the purple grade profound heart jade and the profound heart jade behind you? Yiqing Luo asked again. Purple grade profound heart jade? There's no comparison at all. This is only because you people from the lower realms think that the purple grade profound heart jade is the highest grade profound heart jade. In the upper realms there are a lot of them. But the preciousness of the divine phoenix profound heart jade, even the strongest person in the god realm covets it. Yiqing Luo remained silent for a moment. She had heard of the lower realms and the upper realms more than once. This nirvana realm was the lower realm. Then the upper realms. Was it referring to those legendary cultivators who were brought to a higher realm? He was worried that Yiqing Luo wouldn't understand. Pharaoh he explained in great detail once more. The upper realm was divided into 3 realms. In the lower realm, the upper realm was called the upper 3 realms. The upper 3 realms were divided into the earth realm, heaven realm, and god realm. The god world was the strongest plane of existence. Any random passerby there, if placed in the next plane, could set off a reign of terror and break the balance of the heavenly Tao. And the profound heart jade that even the strongest people in the god world coveted. It was clear how precious the divine phoenix profound heart jade was. After Yiqing Luo heard all these, her heart was filled with astonishment. Her profound heart jade was actually so precious? It was no wonder that the King of Darkness had thought of all sorts of ways to dig away her profound heart jade. Then what do you mean by vessel? Yiqing Luo didn't forget how the King of Darkness addressed her. Pharaoh Crane was no longer as bashful as before and answered straightforwardly. Not everyone can control the divine phoenix profound heart jade. Once an ordinary profound heart jade is dug out, a profound practitioner can absorb its profound energy. But the divine phoenix heart jade was different. When we obtain the divine phoenix profound heart jade, we can't even unleash 1% of its power. And you are the divine phoenix profound heart jade's vessel, the energy absorber. Only your body can nurture the divine phoenix profound heart jade, and from there, produce an endless supply of profound energy. It was indeed like this. Chapter 1676. Since transmigrating till now, Yiqing Luo had a question in her heart. But this question the people from the Yi family would definitely not give her an answer. As the young matriarch of Three Springs sect, she had an enviable profound jade heart. Why was it that she was trash without any profound chi? And after she transmigrated to this continent, she used the dragon god cauldron to refine the marrow cleansing pill, which changed this body's physique. Then, if her profound jade heart was the divine phoenix profound jade heart, why couldn't her original body cultivate? Then how could it give birth to an endless stream of profound chi? Yiqing Luo. You can rest assured, although the divine phoenix profound jade heart is something everyone in the upper realm wants, but other than you, no one else can bring out the effect of the divine phoenix profound jade heart. Seeing that Yiqing Luo didn't speak, Pharaoh he thought that she was worried that her divine phoenix profound jade heart would be discovered by the people from the upper realm. And your current strength is not enough to bring out the maximum power of the divine phoenix profound jade heart. The people from the upper realm will not find out about the birth of the divine phoenix profound jade heart. Then how did you know? Yiqing Luo smiled faintly. The ridiculousness of the cold glare made Pharaoh he tremble. This is what his lordship said, we are only following orders. Pharaoh he was so scared that his face turned pale as he hurriedly replied. King of Darkness? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes and glanced at the seal on the altar. A trace of suspicion flashed past her eyes. But she didn't continue to investigate. Instead, her lips curled as she looked at Pharaoh he with a light smile. What do you want to use my profound jade heart to collect the azure water divine weapon for? Pharaoh He's pupils contracted continuously. For a long time he couldn't open his mouth to answer. Obviously Yiqing Luo's question touched the scope of his resistance. But the more Pharaoh he refused to answer the question, the more Yiqing Luo wanted to know. What was the use of the azure water divine weapon to the dark forces? Pharaoh he cared so much about the azure water divine weapon. What secret was the azure water divine weapon hiding? Yiqing Luo's fingertips drew out a sharp dagger from the fan handle. She bent down and placed the cold dagger on Pharaoh He's face. She smiled and said in a gentle tone, "Pharaoh Crane, I'm not a very patient person. If you insist on wasting your time here, my dagger will not have eyes." Pharaoh He's face turned even paler. He tensed his body, trying to avoid the dagger in Yiqing Luo's hand. But when he moved, the sharp blade pierced into the skin on his face. A streak of blood oozed out from his face. A piercing pain caused Pharaoh He's hair to stand on end. He knew that Yiqing Luo wasn't joking. If he continued to hesitate, the next place that Yiqing Luo's dagger would slash open would be his neck. Pharaoh Crane's entire body was trembling. It was unknown whether it was because of anger or fear. It was only at the last moment when Yiqing Luo impatiently moved her dagger. He gritted his teeth and squeezed each word out from between his teeth. The azure water divine weapon is the highest position in the upper realms, God realms. Lord God Emperor's personal accessory 10,000 years ago and is tainted with Lord God Emperor's power. Rumors say that Lord God Emperor passed away 10,000 years ago and was buried in the God Emperor's tomb. And the azure water divine weapon is the guide to find the God Emperor's tomb. Speaking of this, Pharaoh He's voice paused for a moment. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed. What motive does the dark forces have to find the God Emperor's tomb? Chapter 1677. You want to taste bitterness again? Yiqing Luo looked at Pharaoh He with a smile that didn't look like a smile. He couldn't help but think to himself, could this old man be a masochist? Every time he answered a question he had to be coy and not answer. Then, he waited for her to suffer all kinds of horrible abuse before he pretended to answer her with much difficulty. Actually, he must be secretly pleased, right? He actually liked her sadistic behavior, didn't he? This thought made Yiqing Luo shiver uncontrollably. Suddenly he could not look at Pharaoh Crane in the eye. Pharaoh He didn't know what Yiqing Luo was thinking about, but when he heard Yiqing Luo's extremely calm question, he lowered his head and replied in a trembling voice, "Find the God Emperor's tomb, awaken the God Emperor's emperor, and obtain the God Emperor's inheritance." The inheritance of the divine emperor? Hearing these 4 words, Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. The dark forces actually wanted to obtain the divine emperor's inheritance? The dark forces were so ambitious. The power inherited by the ruler of the highest plane was enough to shake both the upper and lower worlds, and even beyond the 2 worlds. The dark forces did not only want to dominate the Nirvana realm. He even wanted to rule the upper realm. It was no wonder that Pharaoh Crane would reveal an expression of disbelief at her question. Looking at Pharaoh Crane's trembling body, Yi Zichen could not help but sigh. Yiqing Luo's squinted eyes slowly surfaced a meaningful arc. Then her pink lips curled into a smile. She sheathed the dagger and smiled sweetly. One last question. It was the last question. Pharaoh Crane was overjoyed. He really didn't want to answer Yiqing Luo's questions anymore. All of these questions made him break out in cold sweat. If Yiqing Luo asked a few more questions, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on for long. How do I completely seal the King of Darkness? Yiqing Luo fixed her eyes on Pharaoh He's eyes, as she asked with a light smile, word by word. The joy on Pharaoh He's face stiffened. His pupils dilated as he looked at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. This question was within his expectations, but it was also unexpected. The King of Darkness is your master. I can understand why you don't dare to completely seal him. Yiqing Luo had a comforting expression as she patted Pharaoh He's shoulder. But I'm different. My motive for coming here is to seal the King of Darkness. Just kill me. Just kill me. Pharaoh Crane's face was ashen. I said you're silly, you're really silly. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes, curled her fingers and knocked hard on Pharaoh Crane's head. The will to die in Pharaoh He's eyes was genuine. This question had clearly touched Pharaoh Crane's bottom line. If he forcefully interrogated him, he definitely wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. Yiqing Luo half squatted down as she leaned close to Pharaoh He's ear and laughed lightly. Haven't I said it before? I will fight to the death with the King of Darkness, and you will be the one who benefits in the end. Isn't that a win-win situation? In other words, this is the way to seal the King of Darkness. Tell her. She had completely sealed the King of Darkness. As for Pharaoh, after leaving the Sanctuary of Darkness, he became the leader of the dark forces. This was a blatant temptation. Pharaoh Crane was silent. Yiqing Luo picked up the white jade bottle and shook it in front of his eyes. Her eyes squinted slightly as traces of craftiness swirled around. Of course, if you insist on protecting the King of Darkness's secret and wholeheartedly die, I can fulfill your wish. Coercion and temptation, using both methods at the same time. Pharaoh finally compromised. He clenched his fists tightly, as he had no strength to resist and could only obey. Chapter 1678. Runes on the Wall? Yiqing Luo straightened her body as she looked towards the altar. That wall, which was filled with complicated patterns, was emitting a dense cold aura. Earlier when Pharaoh had pinned her on that wall, Yiqing Luo could obviously feel the touch of the King of Darkness who was sealed behind the wall. That wall. It was indeed the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Pharaoh, after I seal the King of Darkness completely, I will not forget about your benefits. Yiqing Luo turned her head as she revealed a radiant smile. Following that, she turned around and with a leap, she leapt onto the altar and headed straight towards that wall which was filled with runes. Her slender figure, under the dim and treacherous light, showed her oppressive aura. Pharaoh laid on the ground as a sharp glint flashed past his eyes. Yiqing Luo's back was facing him so he couldn't see her expression. But he could guess. Yiqing Luo must be extremely delighted. Then let's be delighted. Let's see who can laugh till the end. Yiqing Luo's footsteps were light as though she was extremely happy. She squinted her eyes as an undetectable glint flashed past her eyes. She swept a glance at the surroundings. The circular altar was extremely spacious. In front of the seal array on the rune wall, a few burning lamps were placed. A palm-sized oil lamp was burning with a weak flame. The runes on the wall shone even more strangely. Could the King of Darkness have exhausted his energy and been sealed again? Yiqing Luo muttered softly as she stared at the rune array. Following that, she turned her head as her eyes were filled with joy. Pharaoh, what should I do to destroy this seal array? Use your Divine Phoenix Profound Jade Heart's energy to unleash your profound energy to the maximum and destroy the seal array along with the altar. Pharaoh replied extremely quickly, this time without any hesitation. Yiqing Luo nodded her head in understanding. Following that, she walked straight towards the rune seal array. She shut her eyes as she activated the Profound Jade Heart's energy. A powerful and terrifying profound energy fluctuation started from her feet as it spread outwards. The Profound Jade Heart's energy was completely unleashed. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes. An enchanting red glow flashed past her eyes. She raised her palm and filled it with dark force. Slowly that palm descended. Pharaoh Crane looked at Yiqing Luo's actions nervously. His sinister eyes were filled with ecstasy. Because of his excitement, his severely injured body was thrown to the back of his mind. When this palm landed, as long as this palm strike landed, Yiqing Luo was completely finished. She would completely become a tool for the dark forces to generate qi. Swish, swish, swish. Just as Pharaoh Crane was filled with excitement, a few inexplicable voices could be heard in the air. On the altar, the aura of the woman who was releasing dense Shen Qi had suddenly decreased. His palms were filled with dark force and turned into a hurricane. The hurricane swept up the oil lamps in front of the ceiling array in an instant. The weak burning light was instantly extinguished. The moment the lights were turned on, Pharaoh's face instantly turned pale. He staggered back a few steps. He wasn't able to stand properly as he fell heavily onto the ground. His face was filled with astonishment as he looked in disbelief at the young lady who had retracted her palm wind. His heart instantly sank to the bottom. Chapter 1679. You. Pharaoh was so infuriated that he was trembling. His throat was filled with a fishy taste as he spat out a mouthful of blood. If you said that Yiqing Luo was really innocent and accidentally extinguished those few oil lamps, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. He had underestimated this wretched lass's ability, underestimated this wretched lass's intelligence. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she didn't see Pharaoh spitting out blood as she innocently blinked her eyes. Why not? I try again? This time, I will definitely be able to destroy the altar and the ceiling array. Saying that, she had a sweet smile on her face as she flipped her palms. The glower flame fan suddenly opened up. The young lady's slender figure was like a rose blooming in the dark night. The red feather fan in her hands created numerous whirlwinds of sharp blades. In a few breaths' time the sharp blades shot out. In front of the ceiling formation, the few remaining oil lamps were sliced into several pieces with a crackling sound. The lights stopped burning. There was no longer any oil lamp burning. Yiqing Luo sighed with a helpless look. Why is my profound qi becoming more and more disobedient? I have to try again, try again? Her words had yet to finish. An angry and irritated voice suddenly rang out, "Vessel, stop it at once." Immediately following that rune wall shot out in extremely chilly imposing manner, directly striking towards Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo's fingertips flicked. The glower flame fan easily split apart that aura. Following that, her figure speedily retreated a few steps. Her lips curled upwards as she smiled sweetly, unable to hold it in so quickly. A raging chilly aura swept across the entire dark sacred region. It indicated the King of Darkness's raging emotions. Yiqing Luo's smile grew as she retreated to Pharaoh. He sighed without a single trace of fear on her face. How did you know? How did you know? Pharaoh, he was completely in a panic. He sat on the ground helplessly as he looked at Yiqing Luo with a face full of terror. He couldn't believe that Yiqing Luo actually knew about his and his lord's plan, knew that the most important thing in his lord's altar was those few spirit lamps which looked like oil lamps. Do you think that I will believe your nonsense? Yiqing Luo chuckled as she looked at Pharaoh, he as though she was looking at a fool. Impossible, clearly you. Pharaoh, he could not figure out which step had gone wrong. The questions you answered were half true and half false. I have my own ways to differentiate. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards. She was obviously smiling, but it looked extremely horrifying. Impossible. Impossible. Pharaoh Crane shook his head. The line of defense in his heart had completely collapsed. From the moment you answered the second question, I started to suspect you. It was impossible for the King of Darkness to fall into a deep slumber because of the seal. Pharaoh Crane's fearful expression, as well as the fact that he was too frightened to answer every single question she asked, only to be able to answer fluently in the end. It made Yiqing Luo develop suspicions towards him. He was afraid that the King of Darkness wasn't asleep at all. But through the dark secret arts, Yiqing Luo and Pharaoh he were communicating telepathically. The questions that Pharaoh Crane answered were all questions that the King of Darkness had agreed to. The King of Darkness had been sealed for 10,000 years, so if it wasn't through you guys, how would he know about the matters in the outside world? How did the King of Darkness find out that I have the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Pharaoh why don't you save your effort to play your little tricks in front of me? Yiqing Luo looked at the fearful Pharaoh with interest. Her words weren't just for Pharaoh to hear. But Chapter 1680. Yiqing Luo really wanted to roast what was in Pharaoh Crane's brain. Not long ago, the few of them in Shishanglan were discussing. Was there someone from the lower realm behind her? Pharaoh quickly threw this suspicion to the back of his mind. The King of Darkness wanted to use Pharaoh Crane's mouth to get her to help him break the seal. She didn't even think that inside her azure dew bracelet lived an old man who knew the heavens above and the earth below. How could old man Song not know how to break and destroy the Saint Realm's seal? When Pharaoh told her to release all the power of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade and destroy the altar, old man Song had already spoken out to stop her. Of course, even if old man Song didn't say anything to stop him, it was impossible for her to be obedient. She was not stupid. If he destroyed the altar, wouldn't he be helping the King of Darkness remove his seal? It was precisely because of Pharaoh's words. This made Yiqing Luo raise her guard completely. From this, she concluded that the King of Darkness did not fall into a deep slumber. Instead, he wanted to use her Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade to forcefully break the seal. Even though her current strength was not enough to completely remove the Saint Realm's seal. But at the very least, it could speed up the process of removing the King of Darkness seal. In old man Song's words. Which was to say, as long as Yiqing Luo really followed Pharaoh's method and destroyed the altar. It was equivalent to Yiqing Luo destroying the spirit assimilation array in the blazing cavern, all in vain. From old man Song's mouth, Yiqing Luo found out that the oil lamps in front of the ceiling array was the key to the King of Darkness's temporary awakening. If she directly stepped forward and wanted to forcibly extinguish those burning lamps, she would have already been killed. The King of Darkness would never give her the chance to do so. The King of Darkness wanted to use her. Then, she decided to beat him at his own game and pretended to believe Pharaoh's words. She approached the lamps and extinguished them. Those oil lamps were known as soul lamps. As the name suggested, it was a lamp that gathered souls. As the lamp burned, the soul would not be extinguished. It was these few soul lamps that allowed the King of Darkness to have the ability to devour souls even when he was sealed in the Saint Domain. Destroyed the soul lamp. The soul was interrupted. The source of the King of Darkness power would also be cut off. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's pink lips curved upwards as the ridicule in her eyes deepened. It was indeed the right choice for her to infiltrate the dark forces and enter the darkness sanctuary. As long as the King of Darkness was heavily injured, no matter how powerful the dark forces were, they would not be able to do anything big for a long time. And during this period of time, it was enough for her to grow to the point where she could rival the King of Darkness. Yiqing Luo had this confidence. You slut. How dare. How dare. Pharaoh he looked at the beautiful face in front of him, and his eyes widened in horror. He and his lord had fallen into this bitch's trap. The soul lamp had been destroyed. How could the lord wake up? Pharaoh he wanted to gather his mental power and cast a hex. But he had just condensed his mental energy. A tingling sensation quickly spread from the center of his head. His entire head felt like it was being torn apart. Ah! Pharaoh Crane fell to the ground in pain. He raised his head and smashed it against the ground. This kind of pain made it impossible for him to concentrate. Chapter 1681. Pharaoh He's gaze fell onto the white jade bottle. His expression turned steely green as he roared furiously, "What have you done to me? You, how dare you?" Wasn't the white jade bottle in Yiqing Luo's hands the one which she used to bluff Pharaoh He, saying that it would make the butterfly saint technique follow him willingly? It was targeted at him, a poison which restrained his concentration. Pharaoh He was furious and annoyed, but most of it was fear and astonishment. The young lady in front of him. She was just 15 years old. But she had such a scheming mind. Her thoughts were meticulous and every step was calculated. Even for an old man like him who had lived for more than half of his life, fighting openly and covertly all the way to his current position. He was totally unable to see through what she was thinking. Right from the start he had sincerely cooperated with Yiqing Luo. Would the ending be different? This young lady, perhaps she really had the ability to destroy the dark forces. Only there were no ifs. Yiqing Luo would not give him a chance to regret. She smiled as she twisted open the white jade bottle's cap. The white medicinal powder was sprinkled onto Pharaoh He's body. When the medicinal powder came into contact with Pharaoh He's body, Pharaoh He only felt that his entire body was filled with the same kind of piercing pain earlier. Densely it attacked his entire body. He howled in pain. His body twisted into an extremely strange arc on the ground. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she flicked her finger and the white jade bottle landed on the ground. She calmly raised her eyes and looked towards the altar, losing the illumination of the soul lamp. The entire dark sacred region only had one hanging luminous pearl. The light was extremely weak. As the surrounding sinister cold wind blew, with a thick stench of blood, it filled the air. It made the atmosphere of the dark sacred region even more sinister. A gust of chilly wind blew past in waves. Yiqing Luo remained unmoved. Instead, it passed by the extremely twisted and stiff corpse on the ground due to the pain, and headed straight towards the direction of the silk cloth which was covered with a thin layer of frost for thousands of years. The air was filled with the stench of blood once again. King of Darkness's hoarse roar rang beside her ears. "Vessel, stop. Stop right there for this king." A surge of energy came from all directions. It enveloped Yiqing Luo's body in that surge of energy. A cold and gloomy aura. This made Yiqing Luo's brows crease slightly. "Don't touch me." These three peaceful words came out from Yiqing Luo's mouth. Beneath her feet, the profound qi fluctuated and rolled up streams of energy. Countless streams of air revolved around the sole of her feet, entangling together. Bang! The force from the King of Darkness collided with the airflow around Yiqing Luo's feet. The air in the entire Darkness Saint realm suddenly shook violently. At the same time, in Yiqing Luo's hand, a soul lamp which had already been extinguished appeared. When the King of Darkness saw the soul lamp in her hand, his voice became even more irritated. "Vessel, if you dare to do this, this king will make you regret it. I'll make you regret it." His voice was already in a hysterical state. The restlessness of the King of Darkness caused the cold in the air to turn into ice. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? This vessel had repeatedly sabotaged his awakening plan and his plan to remove the seal on the Saint realm. Now he wanted to completely destroy him. How could he tolerate this? He was the King of Darkness, the king of all living things in the world. Between heaven and earth, All living things had to respect him as the king. However, the commotion in the air was unable to disturb Yiqing Luo's emotions. Her expression was calm as she threw the soul lamp in her hand towards the thin layer of frost. An intense explosion was heard. Chapter 1682. Ah, slut. Slut. Furious roars filled the entire dark sacred region. The dark sacred region was in a state of turbulence. The surrounding air seemed to have been frozen by the profound yin qi at this moment. In the air, streams of profound yin qi continued to revolve and spread in all directions. Yiqing Luo's breathing started to become laborious. The King of Darkness was enraged. Completely enraged. Yiqing Luo slowed down her breathing as she squinted her eyes as she gazed at the profound yin qi which was revolving around her. On the contrary, she revealed a, as expected, smile. The angrier the King of Darkness was, the more furious he got. Which meant that her action of breaking the 10,000 years thin frost was a huge blow to the King of Darkness. Yiqing Luo's vision fell onto the 10,000 years thin frost which was filled with tiny cracks. She took a step forward. Another spirit lamp was thrown out from her hand. Just a light toss. That palm-sized spirit lamp landed right in the middle of the thin frost. A kacha sound was heard. The 10,000 years thin frost suddenly broke apart. The deep pit which occupied 2/3 of the dark sacred region was completely presented in front of Yiqing Luo. That was a blood pool. A blood pool which emitted a thick stench of blood. What was even more horrifying was that huge blood pool was soaked with corpses. On top of each corpse floated a layer of fist-sized transparent air bubble. At the moment when the 10,000 years thin frost broke apart, those transparent air bubbles immediately left the corpses' heads as they swarmed out. Transparent air bubbles in a split second enveloped the entire roof of the dark sacred region. One layer after another. It was densely packed and just one look at it made one's hair stand on end. There were at least tens of thousands of transparent air bubbles. And at the same time when the air bubbles left the corpses in the blood pool suddenly melted into a pool of blood. In just a short moment, the corpses in the blood pool had already disappeared. And the blood in the blood pool had obviously spread upwards. This scene made even Yiqing Luo's scalp go numb. She raised her head and looked at the layers of densely packed transparent air bubbles which were suspended above the roof as she was filled with puzzlement. Those are the souls of those profounders. Old Man Song voiced out in time to dispel Yiqing Luo's doubts. Soul? Are those transparent bubbles souls? These souls should be the sacrifices that the dark faction prepared for the King of Darkness. Use dark spells to extract the souls of the boys and girls, then seal their bodies and souls in the blood pool with 10,000-year frost. You used your soul lamp to shatter the 10,000-year thin frost, and the souls of these profound practitioners escaped. As Yiqing Luo listened, the coldness in her eyes grew increasingly stern. The underworld organization was truly ruthless. Who would have thought that they would use such a method to store the offerings for the King of Darkness? It was too cruel. These souls, they were all sacrifices for the King of Darkness, a source of food. It was no wonder that the King of Darkness was so furious when she destroyed the 10,000-year-old thin frost. She wanted to destroy the hope of the King of Darkness awakening. He wanted to destroy the King of Darkness's hopes of breaking the seal. She wanted to seal the King of Darkness completely. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as her figure suddenly swayed. She was already standing at the entrance of the dark sacred region's palace. She recalled the method that Pharaoh he used to open the palace door. Stop. You stop right now. Following the hysteria of the King of Darkness, the profound yin qi in the huge palace caused the surrounding air to turn even colder. Chapter 1683. The violent profound yin qi seemed to have the power to swallow the heaven and earth. Yiqing Luo's body was unavoidably affected by the profound yin qi. Her expression didn't fluctuate at all. However, astonishment surged up from the bottom of his heart. The King of Darkness was very powerful, much more powerful than the Nirvana realm. Yiqing Luo was very clear about this. It was rumored that 10,000 years ago, the upper realm's power was used to seal the King of Darkness in the dark sacred region. That was enough to show how powerful the King of Darkness was. Even now, he who was sealed in the dark sacred region. The power that was released was not even a 10,000th of what he had at his peak. But it was this 10,000th. Yiqing Luo felt an extremely strong pressure, covering the sky and covering the earth. The violent profound yin qi kept attacking her. Yiqing Luo's robe kept fluttering. A strong airflow lingered around Yiqing Luo's body, forming into a ball shape. In her mind, Old Man Song's panicked voice rang, "Not good, lass. The King of Darkness is enraged. Quickly use teleportation to leave this place." At this moment, Old Man Song couldn't be bothered anymore. As long as Yiqing Luo could survive, even if the secret of the Azure Dew bracelet was known by others, it didn't matter. He absolutely could not let anything happen to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled when she heard that. She didn't expect Old Man Song to even mention teleportation. From this, one could see how dangerous the King of Darkness's furious attack was. But she couldn't use teleportation. She couldn't escape just like that. The King of Darkness's attack seemed to be aimed at her. But in actual fact, the King of Darkness's bigger target was those 10,000 transparent soul bubbles floating above the roof. Old Man Song had explained it to her before. These souls had all been sealed into bubbles using dark spells. Once these transparent bubbles left the dark sacred region and floated towards the place where the souls were controlled. By then the upper realm would discover the dark spells on these souls. And once the number of these souls increased, the people from the upper realm would definitely pay attention to this matter. The dark forces were preparing to rise again and take action against the Nirvana realm. Once the news spread to the upper realm would definitely maintain the balance and lend a helping hand. She wanted to release these souls from the darkness sanctum. The King of Darkness would do everything in his power to stop him. She escaped. It wasn't just the secret of teleportation that the King of Darkness would know. These souls would also be destroyed by the King of Darkness. These souls were the evidence of the evil deeds of the underworld organization. Yiqing Luo absolutely would not allow the King of Darkness to destroy this evidence. Her charming eyes were covered with a thin layer of coldness. Yiqing Luo concentrated. The power of her profound jade heart rose to the extreme. Then the powerful profound chi poured down like a rainbow. The glowing flame fan in his hand also unfurled, turning into a devilish red glow. Bang! The palace gate of the darkness sanctuary was split open by the red light. At the same time, Yiqing Luo's body, which was encircled by the profound yin chi, suddenly exploded. "Girl Luo." Old Song's voice was hoarse as he angrily roared from within the Azure Dew bracelet. His heart was beating rapidly, unable to restrain itself. That girl he actually chose to take on the King of Darkness attack just to release those souls? What on earth was she doing? Old Man Song wanted to use his vision to investigate the situation outside. But no matter how he looked, it was all white in front of him. Chapter 1684. The air currents from the explosion continued to revolve, intertwining with each other. At this instance, the densely packed soul bubbles above the eaves of the palace seemed to be attracted by something as they surged towards the main door. One by one, the bubbles rushed out of the palace, flying towards the sky. These souls had no life. The reverse barrier to these souls had no effect at all. Those bubbles, one by one, surged towards the sky, disappearing outside the barrier. Damn it! Stop! Stop! King of Darkness was enraged. The entire dark sacred region was in an uproar. What a pity! A voice that seemed to be filled with helplessness and pity rang out in a quiet and serene voice. There was a hint of a smile in her clear and sweet voice. "Can't do as you wish, these souls can't stop." That voice continued. You're not dead." King of Darkness roared agitatedly, filled with disbelief. This was Yiqing Luo's voice. How could she not be dead? Even though the current him wasn't at his peak. With his current power, killing Yiqing Luo was not a problem at all. How could Yiqing Luo still be alive under his attack, which had exhausted all his remaining energy? The dark sacred region's uproar gradually calmed down. The airflow that lingered around them also gradually subsided. That explosive air currents slowly dispersed, revealing a slender figure. The young lady's green and white academy uniform was fluttering, obviously without any adornment. But looking at it now, it seemed as though it was plated with a layer of lustrous velvet. Black hair danced along with the air currents. Her slender figure stood proudly. The flame around her made her seem so noble, making one unable to have any thoughts of blasphemy. Wasn't this Yiqing Luo? She indeed didn't die. Not only did she not die. Furthermore, her entire person seemed to have a metamorphosis, as though she had been reborn. In the seal, King of Darkness's mental power had been fixed on Yiqing Luo. This was not the metamorphosis of advancement. Yiqing Luo's profound grade was still stable at Sky Profound First Grade Realm. That was... King of Darkness's mental power suddenly shook. Yiqing Luo's divine phoenix profound jade heart, that smear of profound yin qi which was sealed with the dark incantation, was completely erased. How was this possible? How could Yiqing Luo possibly eliminate that trace of profound yin qi? While the King of Darkness was in disbelief, he felt a backlash attack his mind power. The King of Darkness screamed in agony. Then there was no sound. "Ya little girl," in his divine sense, Old Man Song swallowed his saliva and opened his mouth in a daze. Yiqing Luo's exquisite and beautiful face was filled with an eerie chill. Her enchanting eyes were fixated on the Saint Realm array formation on the altar. Her thin eyebrows slightly furrowed. What was going on? She could clearly feel the King of Darkness's gaze sizing her up. But in the next instant, suddenly the connection between the eyes disappeared. Even the aura of the mysterious yin qi had disappeared. Could it be that the King of Darkness had exhausted all of his strength and his consciousness was sealed once more? Lass, what happened just now? How did you withstand the King of Darkness attack? Why wasn't I able to see what was happening outside just now? Filled with questions, Old Man Song was so anxious that he almost wanted to stomp his feet. Just now. Yiqing Luo hesitated for a moment, as she shook her head in a daze. Everything that had just happened in that instant. Chapter 1685. The moment the profound yin qi condensed into a sphere, it exploded. She was preparing to use her teleportation. Even if she was seriously injured, she could at least preserve her life. But she didn't have time to recite the incantation. Suddenly, a scorching hot feeling wrapped around her heart. Immediately, she felt that her body was being burned by a raging fire. She didn't even have the time to pay attention to what was happening. When she opened her eyes, she was already standing safely in the air. Then came the King of Darkness's hysterical roar, ringing in her ears. Scorching hot feeling? Old Man Song murmured softly. Yiqing Luo heard the seriousness in his tone. You know the reason? Old Man Song was silent for a moment, deliberating for a while, then slowly opened his mouth. To you, this should be considered a good thing, but also a bad thing. Yiqing Luo was stunned. You also know this profound heart jade of yours is called the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Old Man Song let out a long sigh. I originally didn't want to tell you the secret of this profound heart jade so quickly, but man proposes, God disposes, you still know about the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Your current strength is unable to enter the upper realm. This profound heart jade of yours is unable to display its full potential. Yiqing Luo herself was very clear on this point. Previously she had asked Old Man Song, what were the profound grades above the sky mystic supremacy. Old Man Song only explained a little, then let her concentrate on cultivating, to reach the sky mystic stage first. It was because, with her current strength, even if she knew those things that exceeded her current strength, to her it was of no use. She might as well not know anything. Then rely on her own hard work, to find out everything she wanted to know. In that critical moment just now, this Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade of yours saved you. Old Man Song sighed again. I activated the power of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Yiqing Luo was surprised. Then, what did you mean when you said it's a good thing but also a bad thing? You can activate the power of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. It proves that your current realm has increased, your innate talent has also increased. This will be of great help to your future profound qi cultivation. This was obviously a great benefit. However, Old Man Song's tone was extremely solemn. However, with your current strength, you may be considered as one of the best in the Nirvana realm, but compared to the upper realm, you are just an ant that can be trampled upon. You've also heard from Pharaoh He that the dark forces are not the only ones coveting your profound heart jade. Even the people of the God realm are coveting the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. If the news that the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade is in the Nirvana realm spreads to the upper realm, I'm afraid you'll be in danger. Yiqing Luo slowly lowered her eyelids. Her slender hand pressed against her heart. The Profound Heart Jade emitted a gentle profound energy, warming the center of her palm. Why did the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade choose me? She murmured softly. She had countless questions in her mind. The Azure Dew bracelet was her family's heirloom. This other world also had an Azure Water Divine artifact. Not only that, but her Profound Heart Jade was the key and radar to find the Azure Water Divine artifact. The vast Water Divine artifact also had an inexplicable connection with her. All of these questions superimposed on each other. It made Yiqing Luo's heart skip a beat, then immediately beat violently. He heard the sound of her complicated feelings. Old Man Song was silent for a long time. Chapter 1686. Do you want to know? Old Man Song's voice reverberated in her mind. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. This hesitation only lasted for a few short breaths. The luster in her eyes had already regained its calmness. Don't want to. She didn't use her consciousness to say these two words. She moved her mouth and spat out these two words clearly. She understood Old Man Song's concerns. Before she had the ability to contend with the people from the upper realm. Even if she knew, it would be of no use to her. On the contrary, it would affect her state of mind. It would affect the progress of her cultivation. She wanted to know those things. When she had enough ability, she would investigate everything clearly one by one. Hearing Yiqing Luo's reply, the old man in the azure dew bracelet slowly heaved a sigh of relief. That wrinkled face was filled with gratification. This lass. She was too sensible. It was no wonder that she was chosen by the azure dew bracelet. But lass, this time you sent so many soul bubbles to the soul control center, it will definitely attract the attention of the upper realm. If the people from the upper realm pursue it to the lower realm? Old Man Song's tone revealed some worries. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as she looked outside the palace door, at the dark and treacherous atmosphere. Old Man Song, with you around, I believe that hiding the presence of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade and Azure Dew Bracelet is not a problem. Old Man Song remained silent for a while. Lass, you're really meticulous, nothing can escape your eyes. The dark forces had racked their brains to search for a complete set of Azure Dew Divine Weapon. The Azure Dew Divine Weapon was just a divine weapon made from the leftover dregs of the Azure Dew Bracelet. But the dark forces were so obsessed with the Azure Dew Divine Weapon. What more, the Azure Dew Bracelet? In the Azure Dew Bracelet, there was not only the Dragon God Cauldron, the Purgatory Pagoda, there were all kinds of heaven-defying secret technique rewards. And Old Man Song kept reminding her not to use the secret technique rewards from the Purgatory Pagoda in front of others. This further indicated the mystery of the Azure Dew Bracelet. The Azure Dew Bracelet should be an even more heaven-defying existence than her Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. But all along, other than DMO Xian, no one had discovered the existence of the Azure Dew Bracelet. Even the King of Darkness couldn't sense the Azure Dew Bracelet. It could be seen that the aura of the Azure Dew Bracelet was definitely concealed by Old Man Song using a special method. This Profound Heart Jade of hers should also be. For the past 15 years. She had always been called trash. He had a powerful profound jade heart, but he was trash that couldn't cultivate. All of this was to hide that her Profound Heart Jade was the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. If he had shown great talent since he was young, he became the first unparalleled genius in the Nirvana realm. The secret of her Profound Heart Jade might not be able to be kept for long, especially since she was the young lord of the Three Springs sect, one of the 4 major sections. This identity was already eye-catching enough. Not to mention, under the circumstances of this identity, he was also extremely talented in cultivation. She had completely exposed the fact that the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade was in her possession. However, what made Yiqing Luo curious was, in the past 15 years, who was it that had turned her into a wastrel who was unable to cultivate? Who was it that wanted to help her hide the whereabouts of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Looking at the entire Three Springs sect, Yiqing Luo couldn't think of anyone who would do such a thing. Just as Yiqing Luo was deep in thought, a slender figure suddenly appeared from somewhere in the shadows. Chapter 1687. The cold profound yin qi corroded Yiqing Luo's entire body. Lass, be careful behind you. Old Man Song's anxious voice suddenly rang. Almost instinctively, Yiqing Luo's feet moved. Her agile footwork made her figure like an afterimage. But a moment later, she had already moved to the other side. Bam! An explosion sound was heard. The ground where Yiqing Luo was standing earlier suddenly exploded into a huge deep pit. The surrounding profound yin qi set off gusts of wild wind. Yiqing Luo's slender brows were tightly knitted as she looked vigilantly at the direction where the qi came from and shouted in a deep voice, "Who's there?" There was actually someone else here? She actually didn't sense it at all. This was the dark sacred region and only people of the level of the Holy Law and the Pharaoh could enter this place. Could it be? Someone had sensed that something had happened in the dark sacred region and rushed over? The profound yin qi which shrouded the area gradually faded. Yiqing Luo could clearly see that under the profound yin qi was a tall and slender man. The man had a head of silver hair and was dressed in a black robe. His exquisite face exuded a sinister and cold aura. Traces of black yin qi were like flowing black electric currents as it wrapped around his entire body. His body was emitting a biting cold evil qi. She only met his gaze for a moment. Yiqing Luo instantly felt an extremely strong cold current rushing from her feet straight up to her head. That was a kind of bone-piercing cold. This man was very dangerous. Compared to those holy law and pharaoh whom she had met, he was several hundred times more dangerous. This man. Who was he? Damn vessel, how dare you destroy this king's blood soul curse? This king wants to devour you. That evil and cold man's eyes were filled with a dense profound yin qi. The minute he opened his mouth, Yiqing Luo's expression could no longer maintain her original composure. What did he say? This king? He is King of Darkness? No. Impossible. The King of Darkness was sealed in the sacred region's array. How could he possibly reveal his physical body? The man's lips twitched sinisterly as the profound yin qi clouded his expression. But Yiqing Luo knew that he was sneering. He was ridiculing her fear towards him. He was also laughing at her overconfident vigilance. This thought made Yiqing Luo's heart surge with thick anger and unwillingness. Little girl, don't let his mysterious yin qi affect your mind. Looking at Yiqing Luo's expression, which surfaced some anger, Old Man Song hurriedly opened his mouth and called out to Yiqing Luo. Although the wisp of profound yin qi sealed within your profound jade heart was already automatically purified when I was protecting you just now, it's still not enough. However, don't underestimate the power of this mysterious yin qi. The profound yin qi of the dark forces was obviously different from the one he had sensed in the Nirvana realm. In Nirvana realm, especially those cultivators who had made a soul exchange, making use of profound yin qi to deal with Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo could easily dispel those profound yin qi and wasn't affected by it at all. But in the dark forces, the mystical yin qi was the purest. Especially, the black yin qi on the man in front of him was even stronger than the black yin qi he had sensed from the Wolf Saint Law. No matter how firm Yiqing Luo's willpower was, their minds were affected by the dense mysterious yin qi. Chapter 1688. Old Man Song remained silent and didn't give a reply. He had no way to differentiate whether the man in front of him was the King of Darkness or not. He had the same question as Yiqing Luo. From the man's voice and words, as well as the sharp aura that was released from his body, this indeed looked like the King of Darkness. But the King of Darkness was sealed in the sacred region's array. The source of his power, the source of his consciousness, those blood pool souls, had all been released by Yiqing Luo. The King of Darkness' remaining power would be stripped away, not to mention the removal of the seal. Most importantly, Old Man Song was the clearest about the King of Darkness' power. If the man in front of him was the King of Darkness, there was no way that Yiqing Luo could evade that attack of his earlier. Very strange, very surprised? Looking at Yiqing Luo's vigilant and fearful expression, the man smiled evilly. He squinted his eyes. The profound yin qi in his eyes lingered in his eyes. Too bad, you can only be surprised in hell. The soaring profound yin qi continued to be released. That ruthless gaze was incomparably terrifying. Yiqing Luo's reaction was extremely fast. The glower flame fan suddenly opened up and a bewitching red glow cut through the layers of profound yin qi. As though in the air, streams of air waves were produced. Two bursts of energy collided in mid-air. The dense energy suddenly enveloped the entire dark sacred region's palace. The blood in the blood pool also splattered out in this intense hurricane. The ground was stained with a large patch of blood. The man's lips curled up sinisterly as the profound yin qi in his eyes grew thicker. Struggle on your deathbed. This king shall satisfy you. His words had just ended when he waved his sleeves. Following the encirclement of the profound yin qi, a palm wind mixed with the dense profound yin qi struck towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo's expression changed. Such a strong aura. Such dense profound yin qi. This man was indeed ruthless. Each strike was fatal. Those two irresistible forces were colliding with each other. Suddenly, the profound yin qi's palm wind covered the sky and earth as it pressured downwards. The glower flame fan's red glow was instantly covered by the profound yin qi. Immediately following that, it surged towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as the profound qi within her body continued to expand. She gripped the devouring flame fan tightly, her profound qi swirling around the devouring flame fan, emitting an extremely dazzling red light. Then she flipped her wrist. The gourd flame fan raised two red flying dragons. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws to fight against the mysterious Yin Qi. At the same time, Yiqing Luo's figure suddenly made a turn. Boom boom boom. Bang. Gotcha. With a few loud noises. The two huge red dragons were mercilessly devoured by the dense mysterious Yin Qi. Shortly after, the mysterious Yin Qi smashed onto the ground with a loud bang. The powerful aura caused the surrounding air to be tainted with black Yin Qi. Yiqing Luo exerted all her energy and barely managed to maintain her balance, not to be sent flying by that powerful palm Qi. That man, it was too powerful. When the wind from his palm burst out, Yiqing Luo had never thought of going head-to-head with him. Those two flying dragons were condensed from the combination of profound Qi and the glower flame fan's energy. It was just to fight for a chance for herself to avoid that palm wind. She was not an idiot. Naturally she could tell. The man's palm contained a dense energy. If this palm really landed on her body, she would definitely die. She would probably lose her life. Yiqing Luo steadied herself, and the blood from the blood pool on the ground had soaked her feet. Chapter 1689. The man in front of her was cold and dignified. A pair of eyes that were filled with profound Yin Qi revealed an evil smile. Yes, this king is the king of darkness, the king who rules over all living things. His smile was obviously filled with joy. But a sinister aura seeped out from his bones. Vessel, you have no way to resist, obediently be devoured by this king. The king of darkness's eyes suddenly turned cold as his murderous intent was revealed. Yiqing Luo took half a step back as her heart tightened. Obediently obey? These words didn't exist in her dictionary. To make her obey the king of darkness, to become his food. She only wanted to be afraid of the king of darkness. Dream on. Suddenly Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed as she pretended to laugh indifferently. You who have been sealed, even if you awaken, it will only be for a short period of time. Do you think I will be afraid of you? Devouring you is enough. The king of darkness's gloomy eyes were filled with murderous intent. When his words fell, his face instantly turned steely green. Apparently he realized that he had been tricked by Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo closed the glower flame fan and placed it on her pink lips as she laughed lightly. Indeed, after being sealed for 10,000 years, your brain has not been used for so long that it has become rusty. The contempt and ridicule in her eyes was obvious. As long as she was sure that the king of darkness's physical body was not because of the removal of the seal, she could rest assured. Moreover, she could confirm that the king of darkness's physical body had a time limit. As long as she could hang on for this period of time, she would exhaust all of the king of darkness's energy. The king of darkness would definitely fall into a deep slumber because of the sacred region's seal. I know. Suddenly, old man Song's voice rang in her mind. I know the reason why the king of darkness's physical body appeared. Yiqing Luo stared at the king of darkness alertly, in case he suddenly made a move. She was distracted as she listened to old man Song's words. The king of darkness wants to remove the sacred region's seal and descend once again to fulfill his ambition from 10,000 years ago. In order to break the seal, he has already spent a great deal of effort. Recently, the dark forces have been making a lot of movements. Moreover, they are taking the risk of being discovered by the various factions in the Nirvana realm to set up a soul assimilation array in the flame lair to plunder the souls of the students of the various academies. It can be seen that the king of darkness has already reached the final stage of breaking the seal. Perhaps in the next few years, the seal of the sanctuary will be completely undone. Hearing old man Song's analysis, Yiqing Luo nodded her head solemnly. That was her guess as well. When the dark forces took action, Yiqing Luo had this feeling. But, girl, you destroyed the soul assimilating array. Old man Song's voice was filled with deep worry. He even let go of the blood soul curse that he had gathered for at least 100 years. He completely destroyed all of his opportunities to break the seal. He also wasted 10,000 years of hard work in one day. The king of darkness was a very ambitious person. His ambition led to him being suppressed by the people of the upper realm and sealed in the dark holy region 10,000 years ago. However, a seal might not be able to seal a person's ambition. The king of darkness's ambition was still stirring. After spending 10,000 years, he tried all ways and means to break the sacred region's seal. Just a few more steps. But it was completely destroyed by Yiqing Luo. Under the rage of the king of darkness, his mental energy broke through the seal and revealed his physical body, intending to skin the person who destroyed his hard work alive. The soul assimilating array was destroyed. He could use Yiqing Luo's divine phoenix profound heart jade to replace it. The Blood Soul Curse's blood pool was destroyed. Chapter 1690. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, her charming eyes fixed on the King of Darkness as she couldn't help but shiver. No wonder the King of Darkness didn't care about the life and death of a vessel like her. He wanted to tear her into pieces. As it turned out, the King of Darkness was completely enraged and he only wanted to kill her. Is there any way to deal with him? The other party was the King of Darkness, the King of Darkness that could only be sealed by the upper realm. She was a profound practitioner of the profound sky continent. In the eyes of the King of Darkness, it was nothing. Old Man Song finally understood the reason why the King of Darkness had revealed his true body. He should know how to deal with the King of Darkness, right? However, very quickly Old Man Song directly extinguished Yi Qing Luo's hope. Let's not talk about now. I'm just a spirit body guardian and I can't fight the King of Darkness. Even before I became a guardian, I wouldn't be a match for the King of Darkness. Old Man Song solemnly said, but girl, you just got a sentence out of him. Maybe there's still a chance. Get information out of him? This meant that the King of Darkness could only stay awake for a short period of time. As long as they could avoid the King of Darkness attacks and hold on until the King of Darkness time was up. If he seized the opportunity, he might be able to make a move on the King of Darkness. Thinking of this, a cold glint flashed past Yi Qing Luo's eyes. She is not a person who follows the rules. He was also a person who would seize every opportunity. Even if there was no chance, she would create one. The King of Darkness wanted to kill her. How could she not want to kill the King of Darkness? However, the King of Darkness was simply too powerful. Just 2 moves later, Yi Qing Luo had already realized it. With her strength, it was likely that she wouldn't even be able to exchange a single blow with the King of Darkness. Vessel, just based on you? Even if you know that I don't have enough time, do you have the ability to delay me? King of Darkness laughed coldly. His tone was filled with disdain towards Yi Qing Luo. This king will devour you completely, so that you will never be able to rise again. With a roar, the King of Darkness leaped into the air. His figure had already turned into a black afterimage. What came in front of him was a shockingly powerful aura, carrying with it a dense mysterious yin qi. Yi Qing Luo's expression suddenly changed. That aura, powerful and arrogant. She didn't even have the chance to dodge the oppressive attack. Last, don't be in such a hurry to be shocked. The current King of Darkness cannot be compared to when he was at his peak. His true strength is still sealed by the Saint Regent seal. The power he is releasing now is merely the tip of the iceberg. Old Man Song could also clearly feel that terrifying aura. His heart was filled with worry. Last, if it's true, just use teleportation and the thunderclap incantation. As long as you can last until the King of Darkness awakens, he will be sealed again. If he wants to regain consciousness, I'm afraid it will take a few hundred years. That was to say, as long as she was confident that she could use these 2 secret techniques to evade the King of Darkness, she would be able to do so. The King of Darkness was sealed once more. She didn't have to worry about the King of Darkness knowing that she had the Azure Dew bracelet. A few hundred years later. Not to mention whether or not she was still alive. Even if she really was alive at that time, she would already have enough power to protect the Azure Dew bracelet. However, unless it was a last resort, Yi Qing Luo still didn't want to use these 2 Azure Water secret arts. Give up resisting, give up struggling? Now, obediently let this king devour you. Chapter 1691. After King of Darkness finished his words, he charged towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. His speed was extremely fast. Just moments later, he was already close to Yi Qing Luo's face. As compared to the burst of qi which he released earlier, it was even faster. Yi Qing Luo felt her face turning slightly cold. A cold and gloomy intent seemed to freeze her face. When the King of Darkness got close, Lin Fan's eyes widened. He suddenly raised his palm and dispersed the wave of qi that he had released with a single palm strike. That powerful aura spread across the sky of the dark sacred region. A palace was in a state of turbulence. Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled slightly as her charming eyes stared at that evil cold face which was just inches away from her. This King of Darkness. What on earth was he trying to do? That terrifying and overbearing qi wave was from him attacking her, trying to devour her. Why did she disperse that qi wave on her own? Yi Qing Luo didn't feel that King of Darkness suddenly had a conscience and didn't want to kill her anymore. As though he saw the vigilance and suspicion in Yi Qing Luo's eyes. King of Darkness's lips curled upwards as he revealed a smile. You're right, I suddenly don't want you to. His voice paused. Following that, That exquisite face was filled with a cold, murderous aura. He laughed coldly, treacherous and cold. Die so quickly. The last sentence was extremely cold. Yiqing Luo was unable to control the fear and agitation in her heart. Her petite body shrunk slightly as her eyes flashed with a complicated glow. The way to devour you is not only to kill you. King of Darkness looked at Yiqing Luo's face, which was gradually turning green in satisfaction. His smile turned even colder. Yiqing Luo had a bad premonition. As expected, King of Darkness's fingers suddenly grabbed Yiqing Luo's lower jaw. That ice-cold touch was like ice. Look carefully, this face of yours does suit this king's taste. King of Darkness's eyes were filled with a lustful expression. This face was indeed a stunner. Furthermore, killing this vessel wasn't enough to vent the anger in his heart. He wanted to destroy this vessel. Let this vessel taste despair. King of Darkness's eyes were filled with profound yin qi, and the vicious look in his eyes matched the lustful expression. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly widened. A look of surprise flashed across her eyes. That evil and cold face that was just inches away from him, if he moved a little closer, their lips would touch. His breath hit the skin of her face. Cold, it was like the cold air of an icehouse. It was bone-chilling, unbearably cold. Most importantly, Yiqing Luo was extremely disgusted by his presence. The meaning behind the King of Darkness's words and the intense gaze in his eyes made her feel nauseous. She had never expected this. The King of Darkness actually used such a method to disgust her. Perhaps it was the disgust in Yiqing Luo's eyes that made the interest in the King of Darkness's eyes, and that colorful gaze became even more intense. His wrist suddenly slid down. He directly locked onto Yiqing Luo's waist, pressing Yiqing Luo's soft body onto his sturdy chest. Even though they were separated by clothes, Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the increasingly cold chill piercing into her skin. What are you trying to do? Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as she flicked her wrist and attacked the King of Darkness. He actually used such a method. Was he trying to humiliate her? She had to admit that this move by the King of Darkness was indeed the move that stirred up her emotions. If the King of Darkness was fighting against her, even if she wasn't able to defeat the King of Darkness, she would give it her all. But Chapter 1692. King of Darkness's gaze was filled with an indescribable lust. This king has been sealed for 10,000 years and has never touched a woman. It just so happens that you are going to die by this king's hands. Why don't you let this king teach you the greatest joy of being a woman before you die? He abruptly tightened the grip on his arm. Yiqing Luo's body had no way to struggle free. Her entire body fell onto King of Darkness's body. The next moment, King of Darkness's hand slid onto Yiqing Luo's body. He actually started to tug on Yiqing Luo's belt. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale as she flipped her palm and swiftly stopped King of Darkness's actions. Following that, she quickly released her profound qi. Twin dragons emerged from the sea. Yiqing Luo cried out as she gripped her glower flame fan tightly and released the profound skill of the glower flame fan. Two flying fire dragons soared into the sky. Tyrannical profound qi undulated as the two flying fire dragons circled around. King of Darkness's heart was filled with lust. He had never expected that Yiqing Luo still had the ability to resist at this moment. Instantly, she was engulfed by the two fire dragons. Yiqing Luo's body, with the help of the flying fire dragons, swiftly escaped from King of Darkness's embrace. She took a few steps back. Her fingers swiftly fastened the belt on her body. Her pair of clear and charming eyes were already tainted with a thin layer of coldness. At the same time, King of Darkness reacted at the instance when he was engulfed by the fire dragons. But he waved his sleeves lightly. The vast profound yin qi dissipated the two fire dragons which were entangled in the sky. King of Darkness's gaze followed Yiqing Luo's direction. There was no longer any lust in his eyes. Instead, it was a cold and sinister sneer. Looks like this king has found your weakness. He laughed softly as his evil face was filled with a chilly intent. He licked his dry lips, and the possessive desire in his eyes made him look even more treacherous. This king happens to fall for this trick of yours. Really? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her icy cold eyes curved upwards. She tightened her grip on the glowing flame fan and scoffed, "Unfortunately, I find you disgusting." The King of Darkness's eyes darkened, and her exquisite face was covered by a layer of black yin qi. He sneered as his entire body abruptly charged downwards and a burst of strong qi once again neared Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo shifted her feet. A devilish mystic light spread out from his fingertips. She would never make the same mistake again. She would never give the King of Darkness the chance to do so. A flowing red light flashed in his eyes. The profound energy released from her entire body gradually rose. In just a moment, a transparent protective shield had formed around her body. Just as the terrifying glint which carried the profound yin qi neared Yiqing Luo. Boom! Yiqing Luo's defensive shield exploded with a loud bang. Coincidentally, the King of Darkness's figure was right next to Yiqing Luo. His face was blasted by the explosion of the protective shield. At the same time, Yiqing Luo had already executed her footwork and swiftly moved out of the explosion radius. Yiqing Luo's profound energy was not able to cause much harm to the King of Darkness. Even if the King of Darkness was blasted away, at most, it would only cause some superficial injuries to the King of Darkness. For example, now, after the thousands of strands of demonic red light dissipated, the King of Darkness's elegant black hair had been blown into curls. His black robe had several holes in it. Chapter 1693. King of Darkness was also stunned by the explosion. He stood there in a daze as he lowered his head to look at his burnt clothes. The expression on the man's face kept changing. After some time, King of Darkness's hands trembled as he touched his curly black hair. His eyes were filled with a storm. Damned vessel. You actually dare to scheme against me? A hoarse growl came out from King of Darkness's mouth. The current him didn't have any feelings for Yiqing Luo at all. He only wanted to kill Yiqing Luo. Kill Yiqing Luo. Ah! Hearing King of Darkness's raging voice, Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. Being stared at by those disgusting things that were neither human nor ghost, she only felt disgusted. Even though he only used that gaze to look at her, she felt extremely disgusted. Not to mention the fact that she was being groped by him, wanting to grope her body. If it wasn't for the fact that she knew that King of Darkness's current body wasn't his original body, she definitely wanted to poison him. To poison this disgusting species who coveted her beauty. To make him unable to have sex. Blowing him into curly hair was already considered as her mercy. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed with a cold glint as she snorted, "Do you think I am someone you can touch? I'm telling you, if you dare to touch me once, I will blow you up once. Why don't you try and see if you can kill me first, or if I can blow up all the hair on your body into big curly hairs?" Good job. King of Darkness's furious eyes swept past Yiqing Luo. A profound yin qi whirlpool instantly shot out from his body. That whirlpool swiftly twisted and turned, as though it was going to swallow the heaven and earth. That horrifying qi condensed into a whirlpool. It showed the fury in King of Darkness's heart. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. That power was simply too strong. It was so strong that she felt a chill down her spine. In the end, it was because her ability wasn't strong enough. She thought that she had advanced to the sky profound stage. She had enough ability to protect those brothers whom she cared about. But in the end, she still let her own brothers take the risk. In front of the stronger King of Darkness, she felt fear. She was strong enough. He wouldn't be in such a passive position. Yiqing Luo's eyes overflowed with a complicated glint. Her slender fingers curled up one by one. Her entire body was tense, and her expression was solemn as she stared at the King of Darkness. In his mind, he constantly analyzed the current situation of the battle, and in his mind, he had already constructed many ways to escape unscathed. I say, lass, using your beauty to stall for time just now was the best way to do it, and it wouldn't draw blood. Why didn't you grasp the opportunity? Old man Tsang sighed helplessly when he saw her tense and worried expression. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. I can't accept any man other than Ah Xian touching me with that kind of feelings. No one but Ah Xian. Honey trap. She did have the capital to do so. Moreover, he had trained this skill for a long time in the hands of the old men of the Yi clan. But she had never bothered to use a honey trap. There was no need to use a honey trap. But now she already had Ah Xian. It was even more impossible for her to seduce a man other than Ah Xian. She would rather use a battle with the King of Darkness, to stall for time. She didn't want the King of Darkness to touch her body. Old man Tsang remained silent. He didn't speak again. Chapter 1694. Vessel, since you insist on choosing a painful path to death, then I will definitely satisfy you. King of Darkness laughed sinisterly. Just as he finished his words, the whirlpool around him started to spin rapidly. Yiqing Luo felt her chest tightening. Her body was pushed into mid-air by something. Following that, her body flew backwards. He smashed into the wall beside him. She gave a dull moan as her body fell onto the ground. Blood flowed out from the corner of her lips. Her brows were tightly knitted as she panted in pain. She felt as if her 5 viscera and 6 bowels had been shattered. What kind of horrifying power was that? Yiqing Luo was still lying on the ground. She couldn't understand what King of Darkness had done to actually send her flying in such a short period of time. She thought that with the group of old men in her past life, learning various Yi family's footwork, her speed in the Nirvana realm was absolutely heaven-defying. But she couldn't see through King of Darkness's speed at all. How strong was he exactly? Looking at Yiqing Luo lying on the ground. Her green and white uniform was stained with fresh blood. She didn't know if this fresh blood was from the expanding blood pool or Yiqing Luo's blood. King of Darkness's malicious eyes were extremely cold and sinister. He looked at Yiqing Luo coldly as his lips curled up in ridicule. That's it? This king hasn't warmed up enough, don't you die now. He took a step forward and walked to Yiqing Luo's side as he looked down at her from above. Seeing that she had no resistance at all, gritting her teeth silently. King of Darkness laughed delightfully. Don't die too early before this king has enjoyed himself to his heart's content. Saying that, he flipped his sleeves again. A burst of dense profound energy continued to increase in strength. Yiqing Luo only felt her body being squeezed by a burst of energy as she was forcefully pushed down onto the ground. She heard a kacha sound. The ground beneath him had already been shattered by this powerful force. Yiqing Luo could clearly hear the sound of her bones breaking. He was really ruthless. What a terrifying force. Yiqing Luo endured the intense pain. She didn't make a single sound. Her pair of charming eyes exuded an extremely piercingly cold chill. That's right. It's this gaze. It's this gaze that makes this king feel your despair and hatred. The King of Darkness sneered. His eyes, which were filled with hostility, were filled with a joyful smile. 2 consecutive attacks. Yiqing Luo didn't even have the chance to react. His body had already suffered serious internal injuries. The King of Darkness didn't want to play her to death. His attacks were extremely heavy, aiming for the vitals without any mercy. However, he managed to avoid taking her vital parts. Did he want to see her lying on the ground in despair, unable to move, waiting for death? Did he want her to taste the taste of despair? Every time Yiqing Luo breathed, she felt an extreme pain coming from within her body. She held back and slowed her breathing. Girl, you have no way of contending against his strength, but your speed is definitely above his. Old Man Song's voice suddenly entered her mind. Speed? She couldn't even move now. How could they compete with him in speed? Furthermore, she couldn't see through the King of Darkness' attack trajectory. Apparently, the King of Darkness' speed was above hers. Old Man Song hesitated for a moment before spitting out 2 words. Blink. Blink. Yiqing Luo clutched her wound as she pursed her pink lips. Blink could indeed surpass the King of Darkness' speed. But she didn't want to expose the Azure Dew bracelet. Chapter 1695. Lass, I believe in your ability. Old Man Song could feel the worry in Yiqing Luo's heart as he laughed lightly. His tone was filled with trust. Yiqing Luo's pink lips pursed even tighter. Old Man Song's relaxed and trusting tone. It made her heart ache even more. She knew that Old Man Song was pretending to be relaxed in order for her to give it her all. Her slender fingers curled up tightly. Her fingertips had turned white from being clenched so tightly. Her enchanting eyes were fixated on the King of Darkness. Vessel, how does it feel to wait for death in despair? King of Darkness's lips curled slightly as his eyes turned cold, like a wild beast eyeing its prey. He licked his lips greedily as though he was toying with his prey in the palm of his hand, which made him extremely satisfied. Yiqing Luo's breathing calmed down. Quietly staring at his figure. Tightly, she shut her eyes. She didn't reply. Didn't reveal any fearful expression. There wasn't any hatred in her eyes. This caused the perverted feeling in the King of Darkness's heart to dissipate. His eyes turned cold as he congealed his profound yin qi once again as he attacked Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly. Suddenly, her fingertips moved. The glower flame fan shot out a few strong air currents. In a split second, her eyes were filled with a demonic red glow. It went straight into King of Darkness's eyes. At the same time, Yiqing Luo silently recited the blink movement secret method. Her figure swayed. In a blink of an eye, she had already moved to the open palace door. She held onto the palace door to maintain her balance. Before King of Darkness could react, she swiftly stretched out her hand and hit a few acupoints on her body. Following that, she took out some pills from the profound phoenix ring and swallowed them. In just a few breaths, Yiqing Luo had no way to do any simple treatment on herself. King of Darkness had already sensed the change in her aura. You. King of Darkness turned his head and followed the aura towards the palace door. His evil cold eyes stared at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. As though he couldn't believe it. Yiqing Luo actually had the ability to avoid his attack. After swallowing the pills, Yiqing Luo's pain was suppressed and her stamina gradually recovered. She held onto the palace gate and slowly straightened her body. That's not bad. Struggling before death makes me excited. King of Darkness couldn't be bothered to find out how Yiqing Luo managed to escape from his attack. In his eyes, no matter how Yiqing Luo tried to escape, they would all die in his hands. He sneered and his figure flickered. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she sensed the fluctuation in the air, the feeling of flowing over. She furrowed her brows and reacted quickly. Using her footwork, she immediately headed out of the palace. You think that I can't leave the dark sanctuary? The King of Darkness laughed sinisterly when he saw Yiqing Luo's actions. Yiqing Luo was shocked. Just as he stepped out of the palace gate, the King of Darkness appeared in front of her. His feet happened to be standing right outside the palace gate. That straight and slender figure, that black robe full of holes, fluttering in the wind. Yiqing Luo's footsteps halted as she swiftly retreated. She thought that even though the King of Darkness had revealed his true body in a fit of rage, the King of Darkness still had a way to deal with him. But in the end he was still sealed by the saint-level seal. By right, his true body should not be able to leave the dark sanctuary. But right now, the King of Darkness was still able to stand at the entrance of the dark sanctuary's palace. He could leave the dark sanctuary's palace. And even if she dashed out of the palace gate, she was unable to break through that reverse enchantment. Looking at the astonishment in Yiqing Luo's eyes, King of Darkness gave a low laugh. Stretching out his hand, he suddenly clasped Yiqing Luo's neck. Chapter 1696. The tightness on her neck made Yiqing Luo's face flushed red. King of Darkness squinted his eyes as he gave a sinister mocking laugh. Little lass, you are indeed a talent. No wonder you can disrupt my plans time and time again. No wonder she was the vessel of the divine phoenix profound jade. At such a young age her willpower was so strong. She was even able to evade several strikes under his relentless attacks. Such innate talent. If she couldn't be used by him, he had to destroy her before she grew up. Otherwise she would be a hidden danger in the future. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale. Her sharp fingers dug deep into the flesh of the King of Darkness. Her eyes were still cold and her aura was fully unleashed. She didn't look like she was being controlled by someone. Her voice was hoarse as she spoke with difficulty. Not only will I destroy your plans, I can also destroy you. King of Darkness's dark and deep eyes flashed. Following that he burst out into a cold laugh. Then let me see what other abilities you have. In King of Darkness's eyes, Yiqing Luo was a piece of meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. His eyes turned cold as he suddenly stretched out his other hand and dug towards Yiqing Luo's heart. Before I devour you, this piece of divine phoenix profound jade must not be wasted. His sinister voice was filled with coldness and ridicule. Just as his hand was about to reach Yiqing Luo's chest, all of a sudden, a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. The ball of light landed on the arm of the King of Darkness. King of Darkness screamed miserably. The hand which was on Yiqing Luo's neck was numbed by the lightning as it relaxed. Yiqing Luo's body fell limply onto the ground. She recited the incantation and her figure flashed. She immediately teleported away from King of Darkness's attack range. The lightning ball revolved around the arm of the King of Darkness, emitting sparks of electricity. The stinging pain from the electric shock and the numbness all over his body made his astonished expression look extremely comical. Thunderclap incantation. You know the thunderclap incantation. King of Darkness's voice was filled with disbelief. He looked at Yiqing Luo who was standing 10 meters away and his eyes were filled with madness. There's still teleportation. How could anyone in the Nirvana realm use the secret arts of the immortal realm? He forcefully endured the electric current in his arm, his eyes filled with a thick malevolence. Who are you? Who the hell are you? The King of Darkness asked in a frenzy. A pair of eyes flushed red. Yiqing Luo's sharp senses detected a trace of extreme fear in his frenzied questioning. That's right. It was fear. The King of Darkness was afraid of the thunderclap art and teleportation. Just now he said, "Is this a secret technique of the divine world? Divine realm? The divine realm of the highest plane in the upper realm?" The King of Darkness was not the only one in disbelief. She was also stunned. Good. How did the reward of the Purgatory Pagoda become the reward of the divine world? No wonder. Old Man Tsang had always warned her not to casually use it. No, it's impossible for you to be her. Suddenly, the crazed King of Darkness started to laugh coldly. That crazy look on his face. He looked like a madman. He lowered his head and looked at his arm, which was still flowing with electricity. Suddenly, he clenched his fists tightly. A burst of profound yin qi instantly dispersed the layer of electricity. You are indeed not her. If it's her, her thunderclap art can shatter this king's physical body. Ah! Seeing the electricity dispersed, King of Darkness's eyes revealed an ecstatic expression. Chapter 1697. Hearing King of Darkness's words, Yiqing Luo's heart slowly calmed down. Luckily, King of Darkness's attention was only focused on the secret manual. He didn't think about the Azure Dew bracelet. But who was this she that King of Darkness was referring to? The thunder crash arts which King of Darkness was afraid of, was executed by that she. That person, a single thunder crash arts could shatter King of Darkness's physical body? How powerful was that person? But it was because of the existence of that she. Now she could unleash her blink movement and thunder crash arts. Think that you can go against me just by relying on the thunder crash arts? King of Darkness saw Yiqing Luo's burning battle intent and snorted in disdain. When he first saw Yiqing Luo executing the thunder crash arts, his heart had indeed felt terrified. One must know that 10,000 years ago, the person who sealed him in the dark sacred region used this thunder crash arts to shatter his physical body. But this vessel was not able to unleash a tenth of the thunder crash arts power. To him it was not a threat at all. On account of the thunder crash arts, I will not let you die so easily. King of Darkness squinted his eyes as he charged forward with a dense profound yin qi. His voice paused as his smile turned sinister and demonic. I want to extract your soul. Devouring your soul, I will be able to inherit everything you know, including thunder crash arts. King of Darkness's eyes were filled with excitement. Apparently, he was extremely interested in the thunder crash arts which shattered his physical body 10,000 years ago. Yiqing Luo looked at him coldly as she sneered, "Then you have to have the chance to chase up to me first." The moment her words ended, Yiqing Luo's body suddenly moved. This time, coupled with the speed of the blink movement secret technique. King of Darkness was totally unable to see through Yiqing Luo's movements. On the contrary, when the blink movement was raised to the maximum, Yiqing Luo was able to see all of King of Darkness's attacks. When King of Darkness's attack was about to hit her, Yiqing Luo speedily executed her blink movement. Then a thunderclap incantation appeared on his fingertips. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. A thunderbolt that was even more violent than the lightning ball just now struck down from the sky. Coincidentally, it landed on the King of Darkness. That head of black hair which was originally plotted by Yiqing Luo and exploded into curly hair. This time it was struck by the lightning even more messy and chaotic. You! The King of Darkness glared at her and cursed in her heart. She turned around and unleashed an even more ferocious attack. However, this time round, the King of Darkness wanted to use his ability to suppress Yiqing Luo and use his speed to restrain her. But he was no match for Yiqing Luo's teleportation. They exchanged a few moves in a row. The King of Darkness' patience was running out. The attacks were gradually unable to hit Yiqing Luo as they gradually sped up, gradually becoming more ferocious. But he still wasn't able to touch the corner of Yiqing Luo's clothes. This caused the King of Darkness's mental state to explode. The anger in his heart was also growing. The King of Darkness was enraged. Yiqing Luo wasn't as relaxed as she looked on the surface. Using teleportation and the thunderclap incantation didn't mean that he didn't need to rely on any power. All these required the support of profound qi. Using two secret techniques at the same time required a large amount of profound qi. She could restrain the King of Darkness within a short period of time and not hurt herself. But her time was limited. Once the supply of profound qi was insufficient, she would probably deplete her profound qi and give the King of Darkness a chance. She only hoped that. Chapter 1698. Yiqing Luo continued to use the combination of the Glower Flame Fan and the Thundercrash Manual to attack the King of Darkness. Teleportation became more and more agile under her control. The King of Darkness had no way of tracking her. In just a short while, the situation between the two of them gradually reversed. More and more wounds appeared on the King of Darkness' body. He didn't know if it was because he was angry or because the time limit was almost up. The King of Darkness's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Yiqing Luo with hatred. His gloomy gaze swept up the storm. The mysterious yin qi spread around his body, forming a huge vortex. In an instant, all the power suddenly burst out. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. That terrifying and powerful energy made Yiqing Luo feel pressured. Her strength was far inferior to the King of Darkness. If the King of Darkness insisted on fighting her head-on, she had no chance of winning. She would never allow the King of Darkness to get close to her. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed. He quickly widened the distance between them. The King of Darkness stood rooted to the ground. The mysterious yin qi circled around his body and turned into a huge vortex. The vortex towered high, engulfing heaven and earth as if it wanted to break through the darkness domain. That powerful force was unstoppable. Yiqing Luo was shocked. She narrowed her eyes and unleashed her profound energy. Red light surged out from her body and slashed towards the King of Darkness. However, after her attack came into contact with the swirling vortex, it was as if she was about to explode. He was instantly devoured by the vortex and vanished. There wasn't even a flickering streak of light. Yiqing Luo's expression changed. He could feel that the dark force around the King of Darkness was still increasing. The vortex that was formed by the dense mysterious yin qi was also expanding continuously. Yiqing Luo's heart surged with an ominous premonition. What was the King of Darkness trying to do? What does he want to do? Oh no. Little girl, he wants to forcefully absorb your soul. Old Man Tsang, who was hidden within the azure dew bracelet, sensed this powerful energy and immediately reacted, urgently calling out a warning. Yiqing Luo was shocked. He could still move forward and absorb her soul? Was there a need to be so heaven-defying? He shouldn't know the soul-assimilating array, right? The soul-assimilating array takes too long, how can he set it up by himself? Old Man Tsang snorted. The dark spells that the pharaohs know were all taught by the King of Darkness. What do you think? Yiqing Luo remained silent. As it turned out, the King of Darkness was the ancestor of all dark curses. The soul-assimilating array is an array that will only be used when absorbing a large number of souls. Old Man Tsang continued to explain, what he wants to absorb is your soul alone. A soul-assimilating spell is enough. Soul-absorbing spell? Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly. How do we stop it? When the King of Darkness was casting the curse, her attacks weren't able to affect him at all. Disrupt his spiritual power. Old Man Tsang replied. Mental strength? That's right. Dark curses required mental power to cast. All he had to do was disrupt the King of Darkness' mental power. Naturally, this curse could not be continued. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. He took out a white jade bottle from the profound phoenix ring. That bottle gave off the exact same smell as the one she used to dupe Pharaoh He. She threw the bottle into the air and waved her Glower Flame Fan. A hurricane swept up the bottle and sent it flying towards the direction of the King of Darkness. Dong, a loud crisp sound was heard. That bottle had yet to get close to the King of Darkness. Chapter 1699. The white medicinal powder started to fall. Yiqing Luo retreated to avoid it. The black profound yin qi wrapped the medicinal powder into a ball. Following that, a strong wind started to blow. The white powder covered the sky and earth as it flew towards her. F***K. Seeing this situation, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but curse. What the hell, couldn't they have a good fight? While conjuring the soul-absorbing spell, she could still use the profound yin qi to counterattack. The moment one came into contact with this white medicinal powder, one's mental energy would be suppressed. Even she would not be an exception. Yiqing Luo immediately displayed her footwork as she opened up the Glower Flame Fan in her hands and created a whirlwind. She threw the medicinal powder towards the direction of the profound yin qi. At the same time, her figure flickered. She teleported to the side of the King of Darkness. King of Darkness's malicious eyes flashed. A sinister chill shot out from the bottom of his eyes. A burst of profound yin qi blocked Yiqing Luo's path. Yiqing Luo didn't bother with the profound yin qi. She moved agilely towards the King of Darkness. Her fingertips held onto another white jade medicinal bottle as she bit open the cap and poured it onto the King of Darkness. But, just as the white jade medicinal bottle was about to fall, suddenly she saw the King of Darkness raise his head. A treacherous sneer appeared on that exquisite and bewitching face. His eyes, which were filled with profound qi, were filled with murderous intent. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. She realized something. She smashed the medicinal bottle onto the King of Darkness's body. Following that, she silently chanted to teleport away. But it was too late. The corners of the King of Darkness's lips curled upwards as a sinister smile surfaced on his face. This was the moment he was waiting for. Waiting for Yiqing Luo to fall into his trap. The King of Darkness's hand gesture changed. Yiqing Luo only felt that her body had suddenly lost the ability to move. Following that, a tearing sensation spread from her heart to every corner of her body. She couldn't even teleport away. Enduring the pain that almost made her faint, she furrowed her brows and used her willpower to quickly move her body away. But her body seemed to be nailed to the ground. He stood perfectly straight on the spot, unable to move at all. Small vessel, no one in this world is able to escape from the soul-absorbing curse. The King of Darkness, who had his face covered in powder, laughed sinisterly as he looked at Yiqing Luo. He raised his sleeve and used the burnt sleeve of his robe to wipe the powder off his face. It didn't matter if the powder fell on his body. Yiqing Luo's soul was captured by the soul-absorbing curse. Even if he wasn't able to utilize his mental energy, he could easily swallow Yiqing Luo's soul. He laughed sinisterly, his eyes filled with a lustful and cold light. Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly as she gritted her teeth and tried to move her body. She could clearly feel that the soul in her body was gradually being torn apart from this body. The sharp pain of being torn apart. It penetrated her soul as if it wanted to shatter it. The soul-absorbing spell could absorb a human soul, forcefully separating the soul from the body. Yiqing Luo knew that once her soul left her body, the King of Darkness would definitely dig out her profound heart jade and devour her soul. Once the soul was devoured, her soul would scatter and she would disappear from this world for all eternity. Moreover, the secret of the Azure Dew bracelet would be exposed. No way. She couldn't let her soul be absorbed. Still struggling? The King of Darkness looked at Yiqing Luo's determined gaze as his eyes were filled with ridicule. He stretched out his hand and grabbed Yiqing Luo's collar. Chapter 1700. Yiqing Luo's hair stood on end as a chill ran down her spine. That gaze made her feel extremely disgusted. But she had no chance to escape. She could only watch as the Empire of Darkness approached her. His face, which was filled with murderous intent and an evil smile, was pressed against her cheek. His slender fingers curled up slightly. Slowly he covered her chest. Yiqing Luo's petite body suddenly stiffened. A wave of humiliation welled up in his heart. She was furious and her eyes were burning. Suddenly she felt a sharp pain in her chest. Yiqing Luo's face instantly turned pale. His sharp fingers scratched the skin on her chest. A bone-chilling chill came from his fingertips. Gradually he delved into her body. Yiqing Luo understood. The King of Darkness did not want to humiliate her body. Instead, he wanted to dig out her profound heart jade. His fingers penetrated her chest bit by bit. The feeling of her soul being torn apart, the feeling of his fingers penetrating her skin. It was so painful that Yiqing Luo's eyes turned red and her face turned pale. The King of Darkness was clearly doing this on purpose. He intentionally used this slow action to torment Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo knew what he was planning and naturally wouldn't make any noise to satisfy King of Darkness's perverted pleasure. Looking at Yiqing Luo, she was in so much pain that her forehead was filled with cold sweat. His entire body was drenched in sweat. The smile in the King of Darkness' eyes became even more unbridled. Even 10,000 years ago, I had never met a woman as stubborn as you. If you didn't harm my interests, perhaps I might really fall for you. Yiqing Luo's stubbornness and her willpower. The King of Darkness had indeed been attracted. He admired Yiqing Luo's perseverance. Was a pity? She was a woman with such great talent and admirable perseverance. If I don't strangle her in the cradle, in the future, it would become an obstacle to his rule over the four realms. He would never allow any obstacles to appear by his side. Bah! Yiqing Luo spat out a mouthful of saliva as her eyes were filled with ridicule and disdain. She took a deep breath with difficulty and said with difficulty, "I feel disgusted." Every word seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps between his teeth. After saying that, she closed her eyes in pain. It was just 6 simple words, but they seemed to have exhausted all their strength. The excruciating pain he was enduring was also reaching his limit. His soul was still restlessly tearing apart. It was as if it wanted to break out of her body. The more she tried to suppress the breakthrough of her soul, the more she tried to do so. The more he thought about it, the more he felt like his body was about to explode. Yiqing Luo's pained expression had successfully pleased the King of Darkness. He laughed excitedly and increased the strength of his fingers. Ah! Yiqing Luo couldn't hold it in any longer as she cried out miserably. The King of Darkness' hand had already pierced through her chest. The ice-cold finger extended towards the location of her heart, towards the profound jade heart that was being nurtured. Yiqing Luo's delicate body trembled in pain. The pain of her soul and body intertwining with each other caused her eyes to turn red. A wave of unwillingness and resentment surged from the bottom of her heart. Boom! Just as the King of Darkness was about to touch the profound heart jade, suddenly from Yiqing Luo's body, a glaring red glow exploded. That red light was like a burning flame. The heat was so high that it seemed like it could melt everything in the world. The King of Darkness' hand was instantly retracted by the heat. Immediately following that, he quickly shifted his body and retreated out of the boundary of the red light. The moment he retreated, Yiqing Luo's body suddenly floated into mid-air. That glaring red glow encircled her entire body. Chapter 1701. Hot. The scorching burning sensation was burning her heart. Yiqing Luo only felt that she was being burned in a raging inferno. The intense heat caused her to moan uncontrollably. Her breathing was getting heavier and heavier. You lowly human from the lower realm, you can actually release the divine phoenix profound jade's energy? King of Darkness's shocked voice rang beside her ear. King of Darkness's eyes were filled with disbelief. He stared at the young lady who was wrapped in a strange flame. His gaze was fixated on her heart, which had a hole dug out. That bewitching fiery light came from her heart, which was also the profound jade heart. This was the divine phoenix profound jade heart's energy. Even if it was just 1/10,000th of its energy, that was enough to shake the heavens and earth in Nirvana realm. But Yiqing Luo was obviously a vessel which contained the divine phoenix profound jade heart. Why was she able to release the divine phoenix profound jade heart's energy? She could even make use of the divine phoenix profound jade heart to save her life. Nirvana realm actually had such an unfathomable profound cultivator. This vessel must die. And at this moment, Yiqing Luo totally didn't know how horrifying her current look was in the eyes of others. This familiar scorching feeling, she knew that the divine phoenix profound jade heart had helped her again. Previously under King of Darkness's attack, it was the divine phoenix profound jade heart who had helped her to block that attack. And this time the divine phoenix profound jade heart reacted again. A scorching burning sensation spread through her limbs and bones, spreading through every meridian in her body. Everywhere it went, Yiqing Luo seemed to feel the piercing pain from the scorching inferno. Last, be careful. Just as Yiqing Luo was immersed in the scorching inferno burning her meridians, Old Man Song's reminder rang in her mind. Yiqing Luo suddenly opened her eyes. He saw the King of Darkness charging over with a ferocious look on his face. The profound yin qi which gathered around him was so dense that it almost enveloped his entire body. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as her fingertips raised up reflexively. The glower flame fan had already drawn out numerous silver threads, entangling towards King of Darkness in all directions. She could move. Yiqing Luo's heart leapt with joy. He spread his arms wide and slowly descended to the ground from midair. Before Zhang Xian could stabilize himself, the feeling of his soul being torn apart assaulted him once more. Her face paled and her breathing quickened. Unless the person who cast the curse dispels the curse for you, otherwise, before your soul is extracted, this curse will always exist. Old Man Song was deeply worried. He could feel the pain that Yiqing Luo was experiencing at this time. Yiqing Luo's body swayed slightly as she half knelt on the ground. His soul was constantly being pulled in his body, trying to break out. Ah! Little container, even if you have this heaven-defying profound jade heart, it's still useless in your hands. The King of Darkness totally disregarded Yiqing Luo's attack. He raised his hand and directly split apart the silver wires which Yiqing Luo shot over. The next moment he faced her once again, directly bypassing the hurricane created by Yiqing Luo's devouring flame fan, pouncing towards Yiqing Luo. His 5 fingers turned into a claw as a cold glint surfaced in his eyes, as he dug towards Yiqing Luo's chest once again. The terrifying energy charged against Yiqing Luo's soul. That hand touched her chest once again. The divine phoenix profound jade heart released a scorching heat, burning King of Darkness's hand. That heat made King of Darkness's brows crease tightly. But he didn't avoid it again. Chapter 1702. Yiqing Luo was in so much pain that her face turned pale. Her soul was constantly being torn apart, making her unable to concentrate and counterattack the King of Darkness. But the King of Darkness had no intention of giving up under the scorching heat. She could not let the King of Darkness dig away her profound jade heart. Losing her profound jade heart, she had no more willpower to lock her soul. Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly turned cold. Suddenly, she turned her hand and grabbed the hand that was probing into her heart. That hand, under the high temperature, was already burnt. Easily, Yiqing Luo's fingers locked onto his wrist, preventing him from continuing to probe further. The hole in her chest kept on oozing out blood. Yiqing Luo's energy, under the double intense pain, slowly disappeared. She was able to grab the King of Darkness's hand now. It was entirely based on her willpower. "Do you think you can stop me?" The King of Darkness's sinister eyes were filled with an extreme cold storm. Following his voice, the King of Darkness's arms suddenly exerted strength, forcefully piercing towards Yiqing Luo's heart. His hand, under the scorching heat, emitted a smell of barbecued meat. But his strength was still much stronger than Yiqing Luo, who was struggling with her soul. Yiqing Luo's bit of strength was totally unable to stop him. Yiqing Luo felt a sharp pain in her heart. His fingertip had already touched the edge of the profound jade heart. The divine phoenix profound jade heart once again released an even more scorching heat. Yiqing Luo could see a stream of energy like water gushing out from her profound jade heart. Ripples appeared one after another in that power. The King of Darkness's hand paused slightly. It was this pause which allowed Yiqing Luo to find a chance to break through. Her hand, which was locked onto the King of Darkness's wrist, suddenly increased the strength. The sharp fingertip deeply embedded into his flesh. Blood started to spread out from the fingertip. She took a deep breath, grabbed the King of Darkness's hand tightly and flung it with force. Following that, her body staggered as she retreated a few steps. Her delicate body leaned against the cold wall. She panted heavily, cold sweat seeped out from her forehead, sliding down the contours of her face. The King of Darkness stumbled a little after being flung by her. He lowered his head and looked at his palm that had been burnt into a ball of meat. A trace of hostility appeared in his eyes. This woman, how stubborn. Even now they were still struggling on their deathbed. Did she really think that she could continue to be so lucky? The King of Darkness moved his dead finger, and his expression turned even colder. When he looked up again, a storm was brewing in his eyes. Just as the King of Darkness was about to form a series of hand seals to increase the intensity of the soul-assimilating curse, suddenly he saw Yiqing Luo raising that peerless face. Sweat soaked her black hair hanging down her cheeks. His deathly pale face made people feel pity for him. However, that pair of sharp and charming eyes were filled with endless killing intent and ruthlessness. She leaned against the wall with a stunning smile on her face. He suddenly reached out and placed his hand on his chest. She was in so much pain that she sucked in a breath of cold air. Clenching her teeth, she suddenly dug out that profound heart jade. Her fingers gripped the profound heart jade tightly, the dazzling purple glow of the profound heart jade pierced through her eyes. The King of Darkness's face turned pale. You want? Even if I die, this is my thing, I will absolutely not give it to you. Forcefully enduring the pain, a hoarse voice came out from Yiqing Luo's mouth, word by word. Her eyes were filled with a maniacal chill, and even if I die, I will bring you down to hell with me. Chapter 1703. The profound jade heart had the ability to self-destruct. The higher the grade, the greater the range and power of the profound jade heart's self-destruction. The divine phoenix profound jade heart's self-destruction was enough to destroy the entire dark forces. Her soul was about to be absorbed and her heart was bleeding non-stop. Yiqing Luo wasn't sure if she could continue to hold on. She didn't want to give up. But there was no way out. Rather than letting the King of Darkness take away her profound jade heart and swallow her soul, she might as well destroy everything. Destroy herself, destroy the King of Darkness, destroy the dark forces. It was better to be a broken jade than an intact tile. If he wanted to snatch away her things, he would have to use his life to exchange. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with killing intent. Her 5 fingers slowly tightened. An enchanting smile blossomed on her lips. Following that, she slowly closed her eyes. Yiqing Luo didn't see that after she closed her eyes, the King of Darkness had already rushed in front of her, his face filled with fear as he tried to stop her. The King of Darkness's hand was just about to touch the hand that was holding onto the profound jade heart. All of a sudden, the profound heart jade shot out an extremely intense red light. The light was completely different from the scorching heat from before. The King of Darkness's hand, under that red glow, was abruptly repelled. His pair of hands were like rotten meat, giving out a sizzling barbecue sound. The King of Darkness's face turned green, his dilated pupils were filled with terror. The current him, where was the slightest bit of his earlier coldness and complacency? The divine phoenix profound jade heart had left the vessel's body, but it could still protect the vessel. Could it be? The divine phoenix profound jade heart had completely chosen this vessel, to become its own master? This lass, what charm did she have, what ability did she have, to be able to attract the divine phoenix profound jade heart, to automatically protect her time and time again? The King of Darkness stared in horror at the profound jade heart which was emitting a demonic red glow. His heart was extremely shocked. Following that, a scene which made the King of Darkness's expression change happened. He saw the young lady who was holding the divine phoenix profound jade heart in one hand, was enveloped by that demonic red glow. A powerful and terrifying air wave, along with a thick profound qi, encircled Yiqing Luo's body, forming a huge whirlpool. Shortly after, that profound heart jade that was emitting a demonic red glow slowly returned to the depths of Yiqing Luo's heart. Under the powerful whirlpool in the incomparably dazzling red light, the young girl's body slowly floated in the air. She opened her arms wide, and her blood-stained uniform was dyed scarlet. Her fine black hair fluttered lightly on her shoulders, making her look like a fairy from the 9 heavens descending upon the world, making one feel reverence for her. The King of Darkness took a step back. He stared blankly at the girl in midair. His heart suddenly trembled. What was going on? The vessel's aura suddenly changed. What kind of feeling was that? Strange, ruthless, dangerous. A complicated feeling filled the King of Darkness' senses. Apart from the woman who sealed him 10,000 years ago, this was the second person to strike fear into his heart. No, this is not the vessel. It was impossible for a person's aura to change so quickly. The young lady in front of him didn't have the slightest hint of a human's aura. That's right. There was no human aura. That strange red light was emitted from her body. Circles after circles of red airflow coiled around her. The King of Darkness also noticed. On the young lady's wrist, a string of cherry blossom pattern appeared. That pattern flashed an extremely demonic red. Chapter 1704. You dare to hurt me. A hoarse voice came out from Yiqing Luo's lips. Word by word, it was like the beating of a drum, falling heavily into King of Darkness's ears. As she spoke, she opened her eyes. A scarlet red light shot out from the bottom of his eyes. Like a sharp blade, it shot towards the King of Darkness's face. King of Darkness's pupils constricted as he swiftly dodged to the side. You are not that vessel. King of Darkness frowned as he stared at the young lady in front of him. The young lady's eyes were dyed red, bewitching and treacherous. She was expressionless, but her lips curled into a teasing arc. Of course I am not the vessel. I am the owner of the divine phoenix profound heart jade. As she spoke, Yiqing Luo's petite figure suddenly swayed. The next moment, she appeared in front of King of Darkness. The young lady's fragrance assaulted his nostrils. King of Darkness no longer had the heart to waver as he hurriedly retreated. But Yiqing Luo lifted her leg and kicked heavily on King of Darkness's abdomen. King of Darkness cried out in pain as his body flew out. King of Darkness didn't even have a chance to react. She was not Yiqing Luo. Absolutely not Yiqing Luo. How could Yiqing Luo possess such powerful strength? Although this strength was not comparable to him at his peak. But she could at least exchange 3 blows with him at his peak. Don't belittle it, just 3 blows. One must know that he was the King of Darkness, the king who ruled over all living things. When he was at his peak, even in the god realm, he could summon clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. But the current him was not at his peak. He had no way to see through Yiqing Luo's actions. What on earth was going on? However, Yiqing Luo didn't give him any chance to think. She was expressionless and her eyes were scarlet red, like an Azura who only knew how to hunt. She only had one goal: to kill the King of Darkness. King of Darkness's body crashed heavily onto the altar. Before he could even get up, his chest suddenly felt stuffy. A foot stomped heavily on his chest. His body fell backwards once again. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. Yiqing Luo looked down at the King of Darkness, whose face was filled with astonishment as she laughed. Her smile was enchanting and enchanting. "Don't you like digging out people's hearts? Why don't I dig yours and let you have some fun?" There was a hint of cruel mockery in his clear voice. The minute her words landed, Yiqing Luo had already bent over. Her fair hands entered the King of Darkness' body without any hesitation. His hand pierced through the King of Darkness's chest. Blood splattered and instantly Yiqing Luo's hand was stained with fresh blood. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she raised her hand, which was stained with blood, her crimson red and flirtatious eyes fixed on her own hand. "Your blood is also cold." With her actions, the King of Darkness had no way of escaping. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, King of Darkness's body stiffened. Following that, he heard Yiqing Luo continuing, "Indeed, it's just 1/10,000th of his mental power. Even if it pierced through the heart, it wouldn't disappear." The King of Darkness was stunned. She actually knew that he wasn't his real body? Indeed, this physical body was merely a strand of his mental power. Under his rage, it had condensed into a physical body. But before the King of Darkness could regain his senses, Yiqing Luo touched her lower jaw as a flirtatious smile appeared on her face. Her tone was as light as a breeze, "But blood will flow and the senses will hurt. If you can't die, then I can torture you properly." Her voice was like an evil spirit demanding for his life. The King of Darkness's body was extremely tense. Chapter 1705. The pain in King of Darkness's chest and the feeling of losing blood made his exquisite and cold face turn even paler. It was indeed as Yiqing Luo had said. This wasn't his original body. Even if he lost all his blood, he wouldn't die. But his original body was damaged. His senses would hurt. He had always been high up and was used to looking down on everyone. Except for that incident 10,000 years ago. No one could make him suffer such humiliation. This young lady actually made him suffer such humiliation. How could he tolerate it? How could his pride tolerate it? King of Darkness's eyes shot out an intense battle intent. In his heart he had the urge to kill Yiqing Luo. He regretted that he had given up the chance to kill her because he wanted to torture her. If he knew that this vessel would gain the recognition of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade, he would definitely dig away her Profound Heart Jade at the first instance. Recalling the scene earlier when Yiqing Luo dug out her Profound Heart Jade and wanted to self-explode, dragging him down to hell with her. The shock in King of Darkness's heart had yet to dissipate. This kind of person absolutely couldn't be left alive. This would definitely be his biggest trouble in the future. Looking at King of Darkness's indiscernible expression, his expression could even open a dye shop. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards happily as she revealed a coquettish smile. "Don't be anxious, I have always been a vengeful person and I repay it very generously. Whatever you did to me earlier, I will return it to you 100 folds. As she said that, the foot which was on his stomach started to press downwards. Suddenly, her gaze swept past the position 3 inches below the King of Darkness's navel. The smile on the corners of her lips swayed and swayed, turning into an evil smile. Noticing Yiqing Luo's expression, King of Darkness's face instantly turned black. This crazy woman actually wanted to turn him into a eunuch? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as her body was enveloped in a dazzling red glow, blurring her beautiful face. She let out a low laugh. As though she was ridiculing King of Darkness's inability to resist. As though she was ridiculing King of Darkness's red and green face. King of Darkness was infuriated by this gaze and smile. The hollow feeling in his chest made his expression extremely unsightly. He was the King of Darkness, but he was being tormented by a young girl. If this news were to spread, how would he, the King of Darkness, still have the face to rule the 4 worlds? His eyes suddenly turned cold and sinister. Under Yiqing Luo's double attack, he made the most direct counterattack. He ignored the wound on his chest. He stretched out his arms and pinched the foot that was stepping on his abdomen. Yiqing Luo immediately reacted and lifted her leg to struggle. But the King of Darkness was boiling with rage and he couldn't care less about Yiqing Luo's resistance. Both his hands grabbed Yiqing Luo's leg tightly and exerted force. There was a click sound. The sound of bones breaking resounded in the sky. At the same time, the King of Darkness reached his hand into the gaping wound on his chest. He was actually pulling out pieces of bone from the wound. The sound of bones creaking was especially eerie in this silent and strange atmosphere. Yiqing Luo's figure spun in midair, and by the time she landed on the ground, that leg which had its bones broken could no longer land on the ground. Waves of piercing pain stimulated her senses. Her bloodshot eyes seemed to be covered with blood. She stared unblinkingly at the man in front of her who was grabbing her bloody bone. A thick profound yin qi revolved around his arm. Round after round it merged into the bone. He opened his palm. Chapter 1706. King of Darkness gripped the bone sword in his hand tightly. The profound yin qi was still flowing. He laughed coldly as he no longer had the intention to tangle with Yiqing Luo. He raised his sword and charged towards Yiqing Luo's direction. "Little vessel, you've successfully infuriated me. To be able to see the dark divine relic, you should die in peace." His words fell and he had already charged in front of Yiqing Luo. The bone sword in his hand flashed a biting cold sword glow. Yiqing Luo's blood-red pupils surfaced a cold smile. Although one of her legs was fractured, but that didn't mean that she would be controlled by the King of Darkness. Dark divine relic? So what? Those who dared to hurt her and dig away her profound heart jade had to die. Looking at the incoming black long sword, Yiqing Luo raised her glower flame fan fearlessly as her fingertips hooked out 2 strands of silver silk and coiled towards the black long sword. Each strand of silver silk turned into a sharp blade that could cut through metal like mud. After coiling around the long sword, Yiqing Luo immediately retreated backwards. The long silver silk pulled out a long line between the two of them. The black long sword was overflowing with sword qi as the profound yin qi expanded wantonly. Under the silver silk's coiling, it gave off a buzzing sound. The taut silver silk also started to tremble. A tyrannical profound yin qi followed the black long sword silver silk and started to spread. Momentarily, the 2 taut silver silk were covered with a thick black qi. It flew speedily towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly as her slender fingers flicked. Those 2 strands of silver silk instantly retracted. The moment it separated from the black long sword, the profound yin qi suddenly dispersed. But the moment her silver silk retracted, a sinister smile flashed past King of Darkness's eyes. He raised the black long sword in his hand as his imposing manner was like a rainbow as he waved it out. The chilly sword qi carried the profound heart qi, like a poisonous snake's tongue, sweeping everything in front of it. What kind of power was this? She had no way to detect it. That sword qi was too ostentatious and too majestic. Yiqing Luo's figure stretched out as she floated in midair. That huge wound on her chest started to emit balls of dazzling red light. Yiqing Luo's pair of eyes gazed at the surroundings as the red glow turned even more devilish and treacherous. A powerful profound energy erupted from her body. It intertwined with the sword glow which was surrounded by mysterious yin energy. His blood-stained robe fluttered in the strong wind. Her fine black hair danced wildly on her shoulders. The huge wound on his chest was surging with a majestic and vast power. She would not allow the King of Darkness to retaliate. She wanted to dominate this battle. Looking at the oncoming sword radiance, Yiqing Luo suddenly shut her eyes. At this moment, the palm of his hand was constantly transforming into a mirage. Under her movements, the glowing flame fan danced quickly. Immediately following that, Yiqing Luo's movements paused. The devouring flame fan unfolded between her hands. Following Yiqing Luo's palm wind, the gourd flame fan immediately turned into a spinning top and flew towards the sword light. When the glowing flame fan and the sword light collided, the air around them vibrated with waves of qi that rippled out in all directions. The 2 forces were equally matched. King of Darkness's heart trembled as his eyes were filled with disbelief. His dark bone sword actually wasn't able to break through this vessel's defense? How could this be possible? This container actually withstood his attack? No way. He couldn't waste any more time with the vessel. There was too much blood seeping out from his chest. He forcefully pulled out the bone sword. This body couldn't hold on for much longer. He had to end this battle quickly. Chapter 1707. Go and die. King of Darkness's cruel voice rang out. He faced the 2 waves of profound qi as he brandished the dark bone sword and stabbed towards Yiqing Luo. The collision of profound chi caused King of Darkness's robe to be shredded into pieces. Traces of blood seeped out from the densely packed scars on his body. He still didn't care. Bearing with the backlash from the collision of profound chi, the long sword was already charging towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo had not expected King of Darkness to use such a ruthless method. There was no way for her to retreat. That black long sword had already pierced towards her head in the next instance. Just at this critical moment. Suddenly, a hurricane with raging flames knocked the long sword's trajectory away. The long sword pierced through thin air. King of Darkness didn't even have time to react. He only felt as if his waist had been hit hard by something. Instantly, his body flew backwards like an arrow that had left the bow. In midair, blood splattered everywhere. Ah! Following a miserable shriek, King of Darkness fell onto the ground. The bone sword in his hand also fell onto the ground, giving off a crisp sound of impact. What was this? What was it that stopped his attack just now? King of Darkness forcefully supported his injured body as he flipped himself up and stared angrily in front of him. This stare made him take a step back in shock as he sucked in a mouthful of cold air. In front of him was the young lady who should have died under his bone sword. At this moment she was like a bloodthirsty azura as she floated in midair. Her blood-red eyes were filled with a biting cold and eerie aura. Her entire body was emitting a raging airflow. A huge whirlpool revolved around her feet. It was emitting a thick, vicious, bloodthirsty and austere aura. On her right was a noble and elegant vermilion bird with resplendent phoenix feathers as it stood proudly. On her left was a majestic white tiger whose fur was burnt but it still couldn't conceal its king of beasts' might. Vermilion bird, white tiger. Two sacred beasts. Earlier, that raging hurricane which deflected his long sword was the vermilion bird's attack. The force which sent him flying earlier was the white tiger. No. Something was wrong. King of Darkness stared at the vermilion bird as his voice was hoarse and deep. Vermilion bird, are you going to betray the underground forces? He wanted to use the dark spell to control the vermilion bird's mind again. But earlier when he was executing the soul-absorbing incantation, he was smashed on the face by Yiqing Luo's medicinal powder. He couldn't gather his spiritual energy at all. Bah! You bad guy. I'm a supreme holy beast. How could I possibly be in cahoots with the dark forces? You, a lowly human, want to use a secret technique to control this holy beast. How dare you question this sacred beast? Do you believe that this sacred beast will send you to the heavens in minutes? Qi Yan stared at the blood-red beast's eyes and spread his wings angrily. He wished he could give him a wing directly and let him die as far as he could. The King of Darkness's face turned ashen. You used the ancient dark secret technique to control Qi Yan's mind, and deliberately made Qi Yan sign a soul contract with me. You wanted Qi Yan to use the raging flames to pollute my profound jade heart, pollute my soul so that I could be completely used by your dark forces. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she smiled lightly. Then she lifted her long and narrow eyes and said with a faint smile, "Am I right?" The King of Darkness fell silent. This was a tacit agreement. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh lightly. In order to control her soul, her profound jade heart, the dark forces could even give up one of the four sacred beasts, the vermilion bird. That was rather strenuous. But not only did they give up the vermilion bird, they even pushed the vermilion bird into her hands. Chapter 1708. King of Darkness looked at the young lady who was smiling sweetly in front of him in shock. She was Yiqing Luo. She was really Yiqing Luo. But why was she able to become so powerful in that instance? The power of the divine phoenix profound heart jade was also constantly increasing. King of Darkness, obediently return to the sacred region seal and accept the eternal seal. Yiqing Luo glanced coldly at the shocked King of Darkness. With a leap, she leapt onto Chi-Chi's back. With a wave of her hand, a killing aura suddenly exploded in the surroundings. Go! South Waves Continent, Valley Wind City's headquarters courtyard. The entire courtyard was filled with people as students from various academies surged in. But everything around him was deathly silent. Everyone's emotions had sunk to the bottom. No one opened their mouth to break the strange atmosphere. Especially the skyward first house, which was the quietest. Dean Xian stood at the entrance of the courtyard with his forehead full of sweat as he looked at the rows of elders dressed in white robes standing in front of him. This was the Blazing Flame Nest special training. There were 1,500 over students from various academies. But there were only 1,200 over students who returned. But this number, to the various academy students, was already a miracle. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo, none of them would be able to return. All of them would die in the blazing flame nest. This was the least death that Yiqing Luo had exchanged for with her own life. The students had returned safely, and to the various academies, large families and powerhouses, it was a joyous matter. Some were happy while others were worried. Dean Xin was feeling apprehensive at this moment. If it wasn't for his strong willpower, his legs would probably have turned into jelly. He roughly understood what had happened in the blazing flame nest from the various academy students. He was extremely shocked that Yiqing Luo was able to destroy the Dark Side's plan, which had been going on for close to 2 months. The spirit assimilation array was destroyed. The dark forces were all massacred. Even Wolf Saint Law and Pharaoh he were severely injured by Yiqing Luo. What kind of pervert was she? Luckily the dark forces had left a way out. Such a powerful pervert, if they could control her and make her into the dark forces' chess piece, it would definitely make up for the failure of this mission. Dean Xin kept reminding himself in this way. But, however, he was still terrified. Would the dark world push all the blame to him and make him the scapegoat if the mission failed? Just at this time, Long Yunzhan, Yen Xiaoyi and Xiao Jin walked into the courtyard, their bodies filled with exhaustion and worry. As soon as the crowd saw the three of them, they immediately went forward to welcome them. The president of the general hospital asked eagerly, "How is it? Is there any news about Yiqing Luo?" The three of them were silent. Everyone's face darkened. Obviously they didn't get any information. The Heavenly Dean also walked forward quickly. "Is there still no news? Weren't the members of the Dark Forces subdued by the disciples of the Imperial Palace? Also, aren't Zi Qianqian and Su Xiaolian imprisoned in the dungeon? Can't we get some information from them?" The Heavenly Dean was worried that the people from the Dark Forces would sell him out, which was why he was so anxious. But in other people's eyes, they all thought that he was worried for Yiqing Luo. Chapter 1709. Although that was the case. But everyone knew that Yiqing Luo's chances were slim. After all, she had ruined the Dark Forces' plan. Killed so many people from the Dark Forces. Now she was controlled by the Dark Forces. How could the Dark Forces let her off? Don't worry too much, that lass is not someone to be trifled with. Zhou Mo slowly walked into the crowd. His slanted eyes were fixed on the worried face of the girl in the crowd. His long arms stretched out and brought the young lady into his arms. His broad palm covered the back of the young lady's head and pressed her head onto his chest. His action caused the crowd to look over in astonishment. Zhou Mo was one of the instructors that Ghost Marshal had brought along. He actually hugged a student? That student seemed to be a devil class student? "Little wild cat, that bitter face, don't you believe in your sister's ability?" Zhou Mo didn't care about the surrounding students' gazes as he comforted the person in his arms in a gentle voice. Kitty Li pursed her lips as all she could think about was Yiqing Luo. Hence towards Zhou Mo's action she didn't resist. Leaning on his chest, Kitty Li's spirit eyes, which were like the vast starry sky, was filled with a layer of mist. Her ears were filled with his heartbeat. It made her feel a sense of security. I believe in my sister's ability." She opened her mouth and her voice was extremely soft and slow, revealing a suppressed sobbing tone. Zhou Mo tightened his arms as he gently kissed her hair. "It's said that a scourge lives for 1,000 years. That scourge of hers, even the heavens don't dare to accept it." Kitty Li's brows were still furrowed. Believing in Yiqing Luo's ability was one thing, but not worrying was another thing. Devil classes students were all silent. Director sighed softly, "We will take full responsibility for the blazing flame nest's matter. No matter what, we will try our best to rescue our hero student Yiqing Luo." Director took a look at the elder beside him. The elder immediately took a step forward. "We have already spread the news of the Dark Forces conspiracy to the other continents. All the cultivators in the various continents will pay attention to the Dark Forces movements." When the other academies' directors and elders heard that, they all stood out to express their stance. "Yes. The Dark Forces are acting so wantonly, what do they take our Nirvana realm for? This time, all of us from the 4 continents will unite and destroy the Dark Forces." This time, the Dark Forces were trying to absorb the souls of all the students. In other words, he had offended forces from all over the world. At that moment, the halls were filled with the cheers of the students from the various academies. The Heavenly Dean looked at everyone's menacing aura and cold sweat oozed out of his forehead. He had never expected that such a tight operation would fail. Moreover, the dark forces had become the common target of all the forces on the 4 continents. Once the dark forces lost their power, his position as the dean, I'm afraid I won't be able to keep it. As for the students of the devil class, they kept silent and the expressions on their faces were extremely solemn. Right at that moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the horizon. Following that, something fell from the sky like a rolling wave. Bang! A black obsidian beast landed in front of everyone. No one had time to react. A white figure flipped down from the top of the black owl beast. Chapter 17:10. The boorish roar shocked everyone present. For a moment, the noisy dormitory once again became incomparably silent. Everyone stared blankly at the crazy old man who appeared out of nowhere. The white figure pounced onto the heavenly dean's body. He grabbed the dean's collar with one hand and clenched his fist with the other, his face full of rage. How the F***ck did you become the dean? I let you be the dean. I let you be. A punch landed heavily on the heavenly dean's face. The dean cried out in pain, struggling to free the crazy old man's hand. But the more he struggled, the strength of the crazy old man's grip became tighter. In the end, he simply grabbed the heavenly dean's neck and pressed him to the ground. There was no scruple of his dignity as the dean. The dean's face was livid. His face was stuck to the ground and his mouth was full of sand. The deans of the surrounding academies were standing at the side and gesticulating. The dean couldn't bear it anymore, gritting his teeth. Guiyu, are you crazy? This is the school building, how dare you act so presumptuously? He clasped the crazy old man's arm with his backhand. Guiyu spat, I don't care where you are, you killed my Luo girl, I want you to be buried with her. Are you thinking of? The dean was flustered and exasperated. Want to kick me out of the school? Don't you F***king forget who got you the position of dean? Guiyu snorted disdainfully. The dean trembled with anger. His strength was far from Guiyu's. There was no way he could break free from Guiyu's grip. Enough. Guiyu let him go. A calm voice came from behind Guiyu. This voice sounded extremely familiar. Guiyu's body stiffened, frowning as he looked towards the direction of the voice. He saw a young man in black looking at him coldly. Guiyu blinked his eyes, looking past the young man in black, looking for something. Stop looking, it's me. That familiar voice came from the young man in black. Guiyu was slightly startled. Suddenly, he jumped up from the ground and pounced on the young man. F***ck F***ck. You're too F***king shameless. He's just an old man, but he actually made himself so handsome. The black-clothed youth's face was gloomy as he glanced at him coldly. Old man Guiyu's agitated emotions gradually calmed down. The heavenly dean got up from the ground and wiped the sand off his face in embarrassment. Yiqing Luo's move in the blazing flame nest. As a result, he was highly respected and admired by the deans of the various academies. But now that old man Guiyu had messed around. In the next few years he, the Heavenly Academy's dean, would be a joke in the mouths of other academies. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness and resentment. When he glared at Guiyu fiercely, he discovered that Guiyu had obediently shut his mouth under Guiyu's gaze. He was astonished. One had to know that old man Guiyu's temperament was unpredictable and he did things according to his whims. He wouldn't care about anyone or any scene. Do whatever you want. But, he was actually afraid of the ghost martial artist? Guiyu and Guiyu knew each other? What are you doing in the southern continent? Guiyu frowned, looking at Guiyu who was dressed in a messy and crazy outfit. He was somewhat displeased. Guiyu scratched his messy hair like withered grass. Something happened to the Luo girl, I'm here to save her. I don't need you. Guiyu said faintly, go back to your western continent. Chapter 17:11. Guiyu squinted his eyes and fixed his gaze on Guiyu for a long time. Without saying anything more, he turned around and walked out of the school dormitory. Guiyu immediately followed Guiyu's footsteps. Hey, I haven't asked you, what are you doing in South Continent? Wait a minute. Guiyu seemed to have thought of something as he quickened his footsteps. Your current identity seems to be a martial arts fanatic, giving special training to various academy students. Don't tell me you've lost my last Luo? Guiyu's footsteps halted but he didn't turn back. But his actions indicated everything. Guiyu cried out loudly as he pounced onto Guiyu. You're present and you actually allowed the dark forces to take my last Luo away. Do you know that on her? Before he could finish his words, Guiyu's mouth was sealed by Guiwu's hand. Their voices were getting further and further away. The school dormitory was in dead silence once again. The students from various academies looked at each other in dismay. Looking at Guiyu and Guiwu who were already far away, then looking at the ashen-faced and disheveled Principal Xian. In the end, they chose to appease everyone one by one and returned to their own courtyard to rest. In just a short moment, the entire heaven room was left with only the students from the devil class, still standing at their original spots. As though they couldn't wait for Yiqing Luo's news. They didn't have the mood to go back to rest. After half a joss stick of silence, Long Yunzhan slowly walked towards the students from devil class. Yan Xiaoyi and Xiao Jin followed closely behind. Upon entering the sky dormitory, Kitty Li broke free from Zomo's embrace and quickly ran to Long Yunzhan's side. "Brother Long, Kitty Li knows you can find my sister. You bring Kitty Li to find my sister, all right." Her eyes were filled with tears. Her little hands clutched Long Yunzhan's sleeve tightly. She believed in Yiqing Luo's ability. But she was still very worried about Yiqing Luo. If she was by Yiqing Luo's side, she would definitely be able to help her. Long Yunzhan lowered his eyes and looked at the tearful beauty in front of him. His azure blue eyes flickered slightly. He wasn't surprised that Kitty Li had seen through his identity. Kitty Li was the princess of the cat clan and had the sensitivity of a cat beast. She could naturally smell and sense that he wasn't a real human. He could indeed find Yiqing Luo. However, Long Yunzhan narrowed his eyes and slowly brushed Kitty Li's hand away. "She will be back soon." At this time, the devil class students had already entered the sky room 1. When Yan Xiaoyi heard Long Yunzhan's words, she couldn't hold it in any longer. She quickly rushed forward. "Class monitor, do you know something?" Yan Xiaoyi had this feeling ever since returning from the flame lair. Thinking back to when they discovered Yiqing Luo being controlled by Tao Wu in the blazing flame nest, Long Yunzhan's action of calling devil classes students to leave Yiqing Luo. Moreover, after Yiqing Luo was taken away by the dark forces, even the overlord didn't manage to catch her. He still calmly called the students back to their dorms. The more she thought about it, the stranger it was. It wasn't that she didn't know how much Long Yunzhan cared about Yiqing Luo. There was no way Long Yunzhan would abandon Yiqing Luo and lead the students back. When everyone heard Yan Xiaoyi's question, their footsteps instantly stopped. All of them looked at Long Yunzhan with anxious and worried eyes. Long Yunzhan looked calm. His azure blue eyes swept across the brothers in front of him. "I only know that Qing Luo is not controlled by the dark forces." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.